is a race of great length and many moods. It begins in mid-afternoon and quickly plunges into an unnerving twilight zone of artificial light that lasts almost half the race. Dawn will reveal the battle damage of the night. Cars streaked with oil, others showing contact with other cars or the wall, a few missing altogether. And then from that first light to the race's end lie the tense last hours. Those who have come so far always knowing they are just as likely to fail near the finish as near the start. That the hard-earned equity of laps run guarantees nothing. Everyone who races here shares the idea of winning, but to actually become a winner, we must first go the distance.
Fox Sports is proud to bring you coverage of the 52nd running of one of the world's great sporting events. Up next, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The state of Florida has hosted 15 Super Bowls since the game's inception, but for the last 52 years, Daytona, Florida has been ground zero for what many race fans around the world know as one of the crown jewels of endurance motorsports. Today, over 275 drivers will attempt to earn a place in the history of endurance racing and add their names to the list of notables such as Pruitt and Haywood, Wallach and Foyt, Montoya and Bell. Welcome to Daytona, everyone. I'm Brian Till, and I'm fortunate enough to partner with a world-class group of motorsports broadcasters, and we'll combine to bring you all of the action and the stories from this year's running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And what are some of those stories? Well, to begin, this year, the field has been strengthened by a merger between the Rolex Sports Car Series and the American Le Mans Series, now known as the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. What that means is increased level of competition, sellout fields, sell-out grandstands, and even better competition on the racetrack. That means a better show for the fans and the competitors alike. And when we speak of competition, all of the drivers today, they'll be going for this: the Rolex 24 at Daytona trophy, and also, of course, the Rolex Daytona Cosmograph, one of the most iconic watches in all of the world. Certainly anyone can buy a Rolex Daytona, but no one can buy a victory here at the Rolex 24. You have to earn it, and that's exactly what the winners will do tomorrow. They will earn the right to lay claim to one of the world's most coveted timepieces. And speaking of crowds and competition, here's one of my broadcast brethren, Justin Bell, right in the heart of it all.
Well, Brian, I really am. I don't think there's a better place on the planet to be right now than here in Daytona, on the grid for this Rolex 24. And of course, the fans have just been released onto the grid, and it's quite amazing. Make my way over here to one of my best friends in the paddock. I'm going to grab him. Lucas Law, of course, champion last year, LMS champion. You're a little bit back on the grid. Obviously, this car has got to prove itself at Daytona. It's the first time for you in this car here. How are you feeling, mate?
I think we are good. We did what we could with our package. Unfortunately, as you said, we are a little bit back on the grid in terms of we lose a little bit, or we're missing a little bit of top speed. But I think we can make it up with some different things. We just have to push a little harder, and hopefully we can put on a good show.
We know we can. I'm going to head this way, guys. Klaus Graf and Lucas Law know how to push, and they certainly know how to push their way to the front. It is actually quite amazing. I'm going to try and work my way. And I remember, the great thing about sports cars compared to a lot of the other series we go to is the up-close and personal nature. Excuse me there. I'm going to make my way through as fast as I can because, God Lord, it's really kind of crazy in here. Okay, here we are. Let me head my way over here. Now, of course, I can see Marino over there. Excuse me, everyone. Excuse me one sec. Oh, hello, hello. Tony Kanaan here, of course. Last night, deep in intellectual conversations with Gilles de Ferran, I know that. He can't give you advice for this race. What does it mean to you to come here? This crowd, this first race here of the new series.
Justin, it's unbelievable how crowded this pit lane is, and I feel honored to be part of the first ever unified race in sports car. You know, extremely happy with the Chip Ganassi team. I think it's a great opportunity for me, and hopefully after the great year we had last year, we can start the year off with a good result.
Of course, Carl Larson over there, super fast, and Marino, this is what an opportunity for me. This is your moment to define your career.
I hope so. It'll be great to be standing in victory lane tomorrow afternoon with new Rolex on our wrists, and that's what all of us in the O2 car are going to be working towards.
Never say us drivers are shallow. We love shiny watches, but more importantly, this is where history is going to be written, Brian. Everybody wants to be first to the flag in 24 and a half hours.
Well, I noticed you had a new shiny watch on your wrist. Plenty of excitement down here. Let's get it to the guys who will call the excitement at the drop of the green, way up high above the speedway. Bob Varsha, Calvin Fish, and Dorsey Schrader.
All right, thanks very much, Brian, and hello, everyone. A 24-hour race, by its very definition, is unpredictable. But Calvin and Dorsey, with 67 cars down there on the grid, the new TUDOR Championship, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12-cylinder engines, gas and diesel, turbo and not, all the new technologies. It's tougher than ever to pick a winner, Cal.
It really is, Bob. This is really a dream for sports car fans right now. The best of the best going head-to-head here on the battlefield, here at Daytona, and the future moving forward. Every series race is going to be phenomenal. 4 different classes. The field is really stacked with great competition in terms of the drivers, the cars, the machinery. It's unbelievable. But when you look at the field, you have to look at Ganassi Racing. They've been so tough here at Daytona. 5 wins in the last 8 years. And, of course, they're led by the legend, Scott Pruitt himself. He's had 5 overall wins here, 10 class victories in all, and today he could actually surpass the record that he has with Hurley Haywood. ALMS P1 Team Champions, Muscle Milk Racing, they're fielding an Oraca Nissan for the very first time, and they're led by their 2 champion drivers, Germans Klaus Graf and Lucas Löhr. Now, Löhr has won more races than anyone else in the ALMS competition, unbelievably 49 wins. Then you have to look at the 2013 Grand Am DP driver champions. That's Jordan Taylor and Max Angelelli and a normally aspirated Corvette DP. They're joined by Ricky Taylor, and Father Wayne comes out of retirement. He's a 2-time Rolex winner. It's going to be fun to watch the family go to race here today at Daytona. And then another car to look out for is the ESM entry. This is a Honda HPD horse-powered car. It features former Rolex 24-hour winners Scott Sharp, Ryan Dalziel, and David Bradman. Real international cast of characters in that car. They're going to be pushing really hard, Dorsey.
On the technology forefront, a couple of cars to look at. The fan favorite number 0 Delta Wing with its strange body shape. It's built on the premise of a lightweight, low-drag car with a small engine going fast. And of course, Mazda coming in with a pair of Sky-Active diesel-powered cars. They'll be the only diesel-powered cars in the show today.
A tremendous and diverse lineup of drivers and cars about to hit the racetrack. Now, back in 1962, what is now the Rolex 24 at Daytona was the Daytona Continental 3-Hour, won by Dan Gurney, a motorsports legend. Can he move at the end when his car broke down and he coasted across the finish line to win? His son, Alex, hopes to do his father proud by winning here at Daytona in the next 24 hours. He'll do so from pole. Here's Chris Neville.
Well, Bob, this All-American team, they've racked up wins. They've collected 2 championships over the years, but after running this race 8 different times, their best finish just a 2nd place, and that was the year that 6-time Sprint Cup champion Jimmy Johnson ran with the team. And Alex, the Red Dragon, it's always fast, but what is that missing link? What is that little tipping point that is going to get you guys into victory lane?
Well, you know, we've done this race, I think this is our 9th attempt at a 24-hour race, and we've tried really hard to learn from the mistakes of the past, and sometimes it's hard, you know, we have something go wrong at hour 16 or hour 18, and that's incredibly hard to prepare for. But anyway, we're extremely excited, starting on the pole, first race for the Merge Series, and we couldn't be happier with that, and can't wait to get it started.
Well, Jamie, for this team to get to victory lane, they're going to have to go through a team that's won 5 of the last 8 years.
That's right, and that team is Ganassi Racing, and it would be impossible to talk about the Rolex 24-hour without talking about one Ganassi driver in particular, and that's Scott Pruitt. He started doing this race back in 1985. He has 10 class wins, 5 overall wins, including last year. But Scott, there have been a lot of changes. You guys have a new car. It's a new series. How has the build-up to this year been different?
The Ganassi guys have been just flat out, and we're excited to be back with Ford. I'm personally excited to be back with Ford. With that, it's a V6 twin turbo EcoBoost engine, significantly different than anything we've seen in this series before. So that's been, for a lot for us to learn. And then all the rule changes. I mean, paddle shift and carbon brakes and big aero changes, and then, updates to those changes. And nobody's really had that opportunity to go racing together. So it's a wild card race. We're looking forward to it. I couldn't be happier to see the green flag here.
A lot of unknowns for sure. We do know, though, Scott will take the green flag. He lines up in 8th.
Well, whether it's Ganassi Racing or Gainesco that takes the victory or any other team, not only will they have to be fast for 24 hours, they'll have to overcome plenty of challenges.
The TUDOR Series is so far, it feels like home straight away.
It's a great time for sports cars.
There's a lot of positive energy here in the paddock.
Now we know we're racing against the best.
Hats off to the France family and NASCAR for putting this all together and making this all happen.
It just hit me. Like, this will be huge.
More pre-race activities coming your way just over 27 minutes or so before the drop of the green. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway with one of my colleagues who I've always looked up to, literally and figuratively, Tommy Kendall here. Tommy, you've won this event. Now let's talk GTLM. The Vipers are back. The last time they were here, they won. Can they win today?
Well, I was in that car for the last race of last season, and everybody saw how strong it was. What you don't know is behind the scenes, the team really coming together and just as solid on the pits and fewer mistakes. They actually have more continuity than the usual favorite, which is the Corvette team. They've got that beautiful brand new C7R, but we saw one car misqualifying with some electrical gremlins, and they are not as prepared as they'd like to be.
Do you come to Daytona with a brand new car?
You do if you are preaching to the Corvette faithful and you have a beautiful new road car. They want to see that car, just like the Viper guys were clamoring to see our Viper. We debuted it mid-season for that reason, but the Corvette guys, you can't count them out, though.
BMW is here, so is Aston Martin, so is Ferrari, so is Porsche. Porsche's won Le Mans last year.
Yeah, Porsche incredibly dominant, really, at Le Mans last year. But their U.S. operation is being fielded by Core Motorsports, a competent group, and they didn't come loaded for bear with a single shot. They come with a howitzer. There's probably 50 headcount Germans on the Porsche payroll to support that core effort, but it's a big variable.
And it's a great effort indeed. We talk about Viper being fast there on the pole. Andrew Marriott is with our pole sitter in GTLM.
Yeah, well, the GTLM category is a true transatlantic struggle. We've got European Exotica and we've got American muscle power. But it's a European who put the muscle power on the pole. It's the Viper. It's the Goose himself, Mark Goosen. Mark, why has this car been so strong and what are the strengths of it?
Well, I think it's the entire package. It's not just engine or chassis. It's the entire thing that we have. And I think what was nice for us is that the rules stay the same for this class. And we were strong at the end of last year with SRT Motorsports, and it was nice to carry that momentum into the next year. You know, the break was only 2 months and a half, and I think carrying that momentum and continuing with the same group of people made us so strong.
Mark, thanks very much. Well, let's go to some true American muscle power. It's Matt Yoakum.
Thanks, Andrew. This class is loaded with incredible Detroit and foreign machinery, especially the most prolific sports car brand in Daytona racing history, Porsche, returning with a factory-led effort of 911 RSRs. Nick Tandy put his P2 on the grid in class. Nick, when you look at all the storylines, the stiff competition top to bottom, the closing race, the difference in speeds, what's going to be your biggest concern for the next 24 hours here at Daytona?
It's pretty simple. At the moment, it's going to be traffic. With all the cars out there, with 4 different classes, managing the traffic, staying out of trouble, making sure you're sticking around for 24 hours, that's the key. All the classes are strong in areas, not so strong in others. So you've got to be smart. You've got to work out who you're fighting with and make sure you bring it home.
A beautiful machine, and their mission is on the door, and it's simple: their return. Brian?
Simple. It may look simple, but it is far from simple indeed. 2 more classes to talk about when we come back to Daytona. But one of the interesting things about this race is that out of the 24 hours that are run, 13 of those hours are in darkness. Welcome back to the world center of speed, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, and all 24 hours of it will be covered by the Fox family of networks. Right there, you can see the schedule as to where you can see all of the actions around the clock here in the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. The first time in this United Championship, the Rolex 24 has been run underneath that banner, and that is great news. We talked about 2 other classes of cars yet to be talked about: GT Daytona and the Prototype Challenge category. For more on GTD, as we call it, here's Chris Neville.
And Brian, that's Christopher Haas behind the wheel of the pole-sitting Audi R8. This class, our largest and really tightest in the field. Almost 20 cars within a second of this pole-sitting car. 6 different manufacturers. And Rene Rast, also another driver who's going to drive this car a little bit later. You won this race back in 2012. You almost won again last year, but this year's going to be tough. Is it going to be a 24-hour sprint race?
Yeah, it's going to be definitely a 24-hour sprint race. I mean, the last 2 years were incredible. Last year I lost the race by 1.4 seconds, and we could see in qualify already, like you said, almost 20 cars within 1 second. So it's going to be a sprint race on the next 24 hours.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible battle back here in GTD, but let's head back towards the front of the grid with Jamie Howe.
Well, Chris, that would be the Prototype Challenge category that we have yet to mention. Prototype Challenge features identical cars on identical Continental tires, so the competition is fierce. It really comes down to the teamwork and the driving in order to find success. Drivers come from all over the world, all different disciplines. At the end of qualifying, though, it was 25-year-old American Colin Braun who claimed the top spot. Colin, this is your 10th Rolex 24, but the first time for the PC cars here. What are your expectations?
Well, it's going to be a tough race. I mean, obviously 24 hours with a car that hasn't done it before is going to be a challenge, but these guys at Autosport prepared really hard over the off-season. We got a lot of spares sitting back in the garage area if something should happen, but you know, happy to be on the pole and you know, back again driving for Autosport. Just a great organization and looking forward to today. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you know, mixing it up with the GT cars being quicker on the straightaway, it's going to make us have to work harder in the infield, so it's going to be fun.
It's going to be exciting as well. Colin's co-driver, team owner John Bennett, he'll be taking the green flag.
Colin Braun getting ready to climb aboard his machine. And one of the interesting things is, for the first time in over a decade, there will be more than just 2 classes running here, and that will be very difficult for a lot of these competitors. Patience is going to be a virtue, to say the least. We're moments away from the drop of the green, so let's go to public address announcer Jim Mueller to continue our pre-race ceremonies, of which we have plenty more to go. Don't miss a lap. 24 hours of Daytona coming your way on the Fox family of networks.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, will you please rise and remove your hats as the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University ROTC presents our nation's colors. And please welcome Dr. Mark Howell, Senior Pastor from the First Baptist Church of Daytona Beach, to deliver today's invocation.
Our God, today we recognize our dependence upon you. We're dependent upon you as Creator God, who gives our life meaning and purpose. We're dependent upon you as creative God, who gives us the ability to create these machines and the skill to drive them. We're dependent upon you as our caring God, who helps us to enjoy this day and to endure this long event. And we thank you today that you are the compassionate God, who demonstrates your love for us in so many ways, and ultimately by sending us a Savior. And so today we call upon you to watch over this place, and we do so in Jesus' name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and welcome Melissa Trumbull from Palm Coast, Florida, as she performs our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, Melissa
Wow.
Trumbull.
Very impressive, Melissa Trumbull, with our national anthem. And now let's check in one last time with Justin Bell with a very unique perspective.
It's unique, and look who I'm with. Derek Bell, my dad here, who obviously winner of this race. Dad, great seeing you here, and of course, it's almost an epic one, isn't it?
It's going to be a very, very interesting race. Fantastic.
And April Rose, my co-host at Barrett Jackson. Most of my fans are fans of hers. April, this is your first time at Crazy, right?
This is my first time, and if you ever want to go to a race, I think this is the one to go to.
Okay, 67 entries, over 300 drivers, 5,000 tires are going to be used, 2,600 miles are going to be carried. This is going to be an epic, and of course, this is the view that everyone's going to want to see. Now remember this, history is always written by the winners, and every driver out there wants to make sure theirs is the story being told next year. Brian, this is the one.
You know, he told me he was going to talk about the empty racetrack in front of him. I didn't realize he was going to be up there. Forget Derek, April, wow. Way to go, Justin. Hey, we're about to get started right here, right now. Going to Fox for the drop of the green flag for the 52nd running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Thanks for all of my colleagues for a great pre-race show. And like I said, with the drop of the green, Bob Varsha, Calvin Fish, and Dorsey Schrader will call it for you on Fox from high atop Daytona International Speedway, the world center of speed. We'll see you there on Fox.
Under beautiful Florida skies, welcome live to legendary Daytona International Speedway, where something old and something new are making news at the Rolex 24, a twice-around-the-clock sports car marathon. Old is the fact that this is the 52nd year that the greatest names in automobiles and racing drivers from across the sport have come here to Daytona. New is the fact that it begins a new era in sports car racing as the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship brings together two great competing sports car series into one whole that will definitely be bigger than the sum of its parts. A great driver lineup, a huge field of nearly 70 cars, and an astonishing array of technologies are about to hit the track. But before they can race, they must fire the engines. And for that, let's get down to PA announcer Jim Mueller to introduce the Grand Marshal.
Race fans, it is time. Please welcome your Grand Marshal, British sports car legend David Hobbs, with those most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines.
Good to see our old friend and colleague David Hobbs giving the command and getting the honors he deserves here at Daytona. Hello everyone, I'm Bob Varsha along with racing champions Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader. This is a big week for all of us here at Fox Sports. Of course, next Sunday, Super Bowl 48. But with apologies to our colleagues who will bring you the big game in New York, picking a winner between two teams is a 50-50 proposition. Here, with a field of 67 cars with 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12-cylinder engines, diesel and gas, turbo and non, well, it's just a lot tougher, Calvin, to pick a winner.
It really is, Bob. It's a really tough call because this field this year is stacked with competitive teams, and you really can't pick out a favorite right now. But one team you have to consider is Wayne Taylor Racing. Last year, they clinched the Rolex Grand Am Championship with a fantastic run. It included 5 victories and 3 consecutive wins at the end of the year to lock down that title. And on the other side of the fence, Muscle Milk Racing dominated the American Le Mans Series for the past 2 years. In 2013, they went on a tear, winning 8 consecutive races, and along the way made Lucas Luhr the winningest driver in ALMS competition.
Don't count out Chip Ganassi Racing. They've won this race 5 times before. They are the reigning champions. And of course, Scott Pruitt, driver of that 01 car, he is tied with Hurley Haywood for the winningest driver ever in the history with 5 wins.
It is a 2-car Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates. The 02 car is on track with another all-star lineup. IndyCar superheroes Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan, rising stock car star Kyle Larson from the dirt tracks, and sports car ace Marino Franchitti. There's the 02 with its new twin-turbo V6 Ford power. Dario Franchitti was to have driven this car, but after his horrific accident that forced his retirement last year, there will be no more Rolex watches in his future. But we will talk with him during the day. The field of 67 is now on track. They will race in 4 classes for the next 24 hours. We'll be back here on Fox in a moment to turn them loose. Welcome back to a cool, breezy day under blue skies and bright sunshine here at Daytona Beach. The race about to get underway. Here's our Continental starting grid across the top of your screen. And note the color background for the numbers. Red indicates the faster of two classes of cars in each of the prototype and GT division. The red numbered cards are basically professional lineups racing for manufacturer teams. The blue lineups are with the slower cars in each of the prototype and GT classes, known as Prototype Challenge and GT Daytona. There is our pole sitter, Alex Gurney, in the number 99 Red Dragon from Gainescoat Racing.
They're a two-time Grand Am Championship winning team, Bob. Great start to the year. Second pole here at the 24 for Alex Gurney.
Here's the pole-sitting car in the Prototype Challenge class, the number 54 from Core Autosports. Colin Brown put the car on pole. Team owner John Bennett will start it.
Core Autosport been a three-time PC team champion in ALMS competition.
Now moving to the GT Le Mans class, the faster of the two GT classes. Viper is back for the first time since they won this race back in 2000. Overall, Belgian Mark Goossens put the car on pole, and he will start it.
Huge manufacturer presence in this class, Bob. Great start for the SRT team.
And in the GT Daytona class, the largest class in the field with 28 cars and the biggest mix of manufacturers. Starting 33rd in the overall is Christopher Haas in an Audi R8 LM.
And look out for this class, so competitive. As Chris mentioned, we had 20 cars within 1 second in qualifying.
There you have your pole sitters. They're coming around to take the green flag. Let's check the keys to victory here at the Rolex 24.
Well, playing by the rules, the series have merged. New rules have been blended. You got to learn those and learn those quick. We're at the beach, keep digging. Crews have to work really hard to keep their cars on the racetrack. For the past few years, this has been a shootout in the last couple of years, and it really is the strongest horse that wins this race.
There you see the blue fields going across the top of your screen. Those are the Pro-Am classes. Basically, drivers who do not make their living in professional racing but want to come out. They have racing licenses. They have the resources to race with the big stars here at Daytona. Now, in front of a record crowd here at Daytona International Speedway, tens of thousands of fans, not in the grandstands, but down in the infield where you want to be at a road race. We are set to go racing. Gurney drops the hammer, and away we go here at the 52nd Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Four Chevy-powered prototypes leads the field to green. Dixon looks to the inside for Ganassi Racing in that red, white, and blue 02 machine.
First time into turn one, cold tires. It's a cold day. Be careful, boys.
Look at the Delta Wing there. Very different looking car right in the mix.
Oh, fiberglass flying. I should say carbon fiber flying.
Contact between someone out there. Hard to tell from here.
Looked like a wing end plate to me. Could be anything, though.
A little bit of brake lockup. That's the blue smoke on the entry to the infield hairpin, the first of two. Here
Grand Marshal David Hobbs told the drivers in the drivers' meeting this morning, he said, you can't win this race on the first lap, but you can certainly lose it.
And we have our first spin. That was at the
Core Autosport.
That's a pole-sitting car in the Prototype Challenge class.
I see no damage to the back, as if someone pushed him off.
In these hairpins, you do get a stack-up effect. It's so easy on cold tires to get a little nudge and lose traction and lose grip and do a quick spin.
I was worried for him there. We had a bit of overnight rain. I thought it might be a little too mucky for him to be able to get out, but he's done it. And now he has a lot of work to do, does John Bennett.
It's a good point you made there, Bob. It did rain all night. He could have got stuck there. Watch up in front here.
Off to the left.
Locked up brakes. You see it right there.
All right, there's just a funneling there. 3 into 2 doesn't go.
Oh, he did get a little damage across the front splitter, possibly.
That was our pole-sitting GTLM machine that was in the mix there as well.
Yeah, a little damage on the right front corner on the splitter. Nothing that requires to come in, I don't believe.
All day long, we're going to see traffic situations like this. We have 4 different classes of racing together on the same track at the same time. It is action, action, action.
I don't see huge differences on the straightaway right here coming on the banking, but when you get down to that brake zone in turn 1, that's where the real difference comes in speeds.
Beautiful, sleek prototype cars and the very familiar looking shapes of the GTs, all racing together with one goal in mind: to etch your name in the honor roll of one of the world's great endurance sports car classics.
What makes them easy to differentiate? I mean, the Daytona prototypes, or any of the prototypes, I should say, are not cars like you see on the street. Anything that looks like something that your rich neighbor has is one of the GT cars.
See the styling cues from the street Corvette here in the Corvette prototype. They have been dominant all weekend. In fact, going back to the series they came from, the Grand Am Rolex series, they were dominant there as well.
These are high downforce prototype machines, delivering about 600 horsepower, and they really put the power to the ground very effectively. It's very bumpy there, coming off the infield section as you rejoin the tri-oval here.
A little bit of smoke out from underneath the 9. That could be residual stuff that they put on. They take these headers and they put oil on them after the runs and so forth. That could just be burning off still.
Those are sister cars, 2 cars from the Action Express team that joined the series a few years ago in the biggest possible way, winning from out of left field here at Daytona.
And they have been really, really fast all through this weekend. And then before that, even at the Roar test, these cars have been very fast. I say they are one of the teams to watch for sure.
They've been doing a tremendous job, Dorsey, but I think everyone has question marks in their head. The rules packages came together quite late, so these are really unproven machines that we're looking at here, and they have to run 24 hours. Spoke to Simon Hodgson, who leads the Velocity Worldwide Wayne Taylor Racing team. He said, we haven't done more than 25 minutes consecutively yet in testing, getting ready for this race.
Bert Frizzell leading teammate Joao Barbosa. Let's get down to the pit lane now and hear from our reporters, beginning with Chris Neville.
Well, Bob, there's 4 of us in pit lane. We'll be down here all day today and all day tomorrow giving you stories, talking to these teams, these drivers, listening to the radio communication. And Calvin, like you said it, these teams are going to have to keep digging. They've got spare parts lining all these tents down here just in case something goes wrong. Listening to team owner Bob Stallings on the 99, telling Alex Gurney tire temperatures, tire pressures up to what they want to see. So it's time to go racing. Jamie Howe?
Well, down at Ganassi Racing, there are many unknowns. They do have that brand new Ford EcoBoost power, so that's an unknown. They also have a couple of new drivers who have never competed in this race before, so that's an unknown. But what the team does have is the experience of doing this race and the experience of the entire Chip Ganassi organization. That is what they feel is going to be a huge advantage over the next 24 hours. But they're not the only ones down here. It's certainly going to be exciting. For more, here's Andrew Marriott.
Well, that Viper is leading the GTLM class, but there's an Aston Martin right up its exhaust pipe now. And another one to watch for is the Ferrari. The best of the Ferraris had problems in qualifying, started right at the back. I noticed that's already coming through the field. And watch out for a big battle between the Europeans and the American muscle cars. Matt Yoakum.
Andrew, one of America's iconic production-based cars, the Corvette returns to sports car racing with the beautiful C7R Corvette, helping to carry the American muscle car flag. They haven't been competing here at the beach since 2001. That year, they not only dominated their class, they won overall today and this weekend, hoping to write a new chapter in Chevrolet's storied racing history. Watch out for those yellow cars.
And there is one of them, the number 4 machine, beautiful, what has become Corvette yellow over the years. For more than a decade, they dominated in the former American Le Mans series, and they went to the 24 Hours of Le Mans and won their class time after time after time. Truly America's sports car to the world.
The last time they competed here, Bob, they went to victory lane overall.
Now to the GT Daytona class. The Corvettes run in GT Le Mans or LM. These are the GT Daytona cars, led by an Audi R8 in qualifying. That very car, the number 48, in the hands of Christopher Haas.
We already finished 1-2 here, Dorsey, and they've really come on strong. A lot of development since last year's 24-hour race, and this is a very, very competitive field of the GTD machines. It's going to be sensational to watch them go up against the likes of Ferrari, Porsche, BMW. Just some great manufacturer interest in this class as well.
We were all shocked in qualifying when the top 20 of these cars qualified within the same second. You barely ever get that in a spec class, but to have all these different manufacturers and have the parity be that tight is amazing.
Drivers just starting to settle into a groove here as we've completed 3 laps. Now on their 4th lap, those Continental tires will be up to temperature on these GTD machines. The driver will start to get into a groove. The nerves will start to go away a little bit. And now it's all about settling in, not making any mistakes for 24 hours.
One thing the drivers in the GT classes have to be careful of is the speed differential to the big, powerful prototypes, the purpose-built racing cars.
Right there is probably the worst place on the racetrack for that. We call it the bus stop or the chicane on the back straightaway. That is where the closing rate is the greatest. We will see a lot of controversy before this 24 hours is over right there.
Now on each of those 2 cars, one a GT car, one a prototype, you'll see a little window with a blue or a red number in it. That's called the leader light system. It's a great aid to fans at the racetrack. It displays what position in class that car currently holds, making it easy to follow the race.
What's going to be fascinating here this weekend, you've got 4 different classes, but they perform, they have efficiencies in different areas of the racetrack. You're looking at this GTD machine, one of the really quick LMPC machines is right behind him, but watch under the brakes here. This is where the downforce and the handling comes into play, but that GTD, as you saw, that Ferrari was equally competitive around the oval.
Andrew Marriott is in the pit lane where one of the prototypes is already in.
Yes, the 50 car. This is the car which is owned by the old AC/DC rocker who is not driving Brian Johnson, but some of his friends are here, and they've already got a problem down in the engine compartment with an oil leak. Now, this was the slowest of these prototypes, but they certainly didn't expect to have a problem now. So, unfortunately, the rocker's car is in trouble.
Jim Pace has won this race before overall. Here we see the Krone Racing Ferrari. Tracy Krone, Nick Johnson, the regular drivers in this car, been joined by Italian Bertolini and Scottish driver Peter Dumbreck had qualified the car.
Looks like they took a couple tires. I would think maybe Tracy with a flat spot got in trouble somewhere, I would think.
Let's see if we can see what happened to the 50. It looks like they're having to attend to some breakage. Watching the back. Ooh, big lockup.
Yeah, he may have torn down an oil line by tearing across the grass like that, or maybe something was adrift already, Dorsey.
See it on board this time. You know, he could have got the bottom of a radiator. Ooh, see a spin right there.
Yeah, I wonder if he tore a hose off when he had the off-course excursion, thus giving him drama around the rest of the racetrack, because that's a different corner to the one we were looking at before.
You see steam inside the car there with Jim.
The reason it's number 50 is because each of the 4 drivers, Byron DeFore, Jim Pace, Frank Beck, and David Hinton, are over that age. We'll take a break and return to the 52nd Rolex 24 at Daytona here on Fox. Back live at Daytona International Speedway in the 52nd Rolex 24, where we are under a full course caution for the first time in the race. And there you see Charlie Putman from Mills, New York, climbing from his Audi R8 LMS after a heavy contact with the concrete wall just beyond pit out.
But down in the turn 1 area, bit of an angle look at it here.
Oh, he lost it on his own on the brake zone.
Well, wow, I wonder if he had a...
Could be a mechanical failure. He hit the wall quite hard, as you see the skid marks leading straight down in there.
Never seen
big contact in the wall right there.
Before.
No, that was, I would think that's a mechanical issue.
Yeah, maybe something in the right rear suspension or something let go, because it just kind of sent him down there. They're saying that, the team is saying he may have broken a half shaft, which drives one of the rear wheels,
and that turns the car instantly. You know, you lose power to one side of the car only. It turns the car like we do. It looked like it was a mechanical failure of some sort. But the point being, he hit that wall a ton. That's at top speed around here. It's a bad ride to just have to take.
This is one of the fastest cars in this GTD field. They qualified third, had a technical infraction, had to start from the back. But this is one of the leading Audis out early in this race.
He was to share the car with Charles Espenlaub, James Walker, and Oliver Jarvis, who was on the team that won their class last year here at Daytona, driving one of those Audi R8s. Another break coming up while we're under caution, and we'll be back live to Daytona International Speedway with more of one of the world's great sports car classics, the Rolex 24. Back at Daytona International Speedway in the 52nd Rolex 24 at Daytona, opening a new era of sports car racing as part of the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. Once again, not many folks in the grandstand because this is road racing at this world-class facility, which means you want to be down on the infield, which is packed with trailers, tents, and all sorts of entertainment. Pit stops have begun as we are under the yellow flag. First in will be the prototypes to Chris Neville.
And Bob Joao Barbosa started third, and he just had to come into pit lane because he's getting some temperature alarms. Water temp and oil temp a bit too high in that Corvette. The team thought there might be some debris on the grill, but when he came into his pit box here, there was no debris on that grill.
Wow, that's not a good sign.
Right now he's having to stop at the end of pit lane because the field is still streaming by the pit exit. So once the safety car and the overall leader gets to that point, you have to wait for the train to go by. See the different looking prototype machine here. This is one of the P prototype machines from ALMS last year. They're all blended together now under one banner.
They were working on the right rear. Calvin took something like one of the blocks out of the back, maybe some contact with another car. Possibly I saw him remove something right behind and lower than the right rear wing, or the rear bottom of the wing.
Johannes van Overbeek in the car, sponsored by Tequila Patrón, which is also the sponsor of a championship within a championship this year called the North American Endurance Cup, taking the 4 longest races in the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. The Rolex 24 at Daytona, the Mobil 1 12 hours of Sebring, the 6 hours at Watkins Glen, and the 10-hour Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta in the fall. And the high point scorers will win the first cup. To Chris Neville again.
Bob, also some action down in Flying Lizard. Both Audi R8s in here. Fuel and tires on those cars. Lots of drivers talking about debris on the racetrack. We saw some contact out there in the opening laps. Also a lot of dirt on the racetrack. So this team, playing it conservative, put new Continental tires on their Audis.
See that wire right there is a grounding wire, guys. They put that on to eliminate any kind of spark while they're fueling. That one's a pretty heavy one. Looks like a welding cable or a big jumper cable, actually.
Yeah.
And you can see here that he got into his pit box not at the right angle, so the fuel hose, it has to be a minimum of 10 feet. Some of the teams actually extend the length of that for this type of situation. The problem is if you extend the length of the hose, it takes longer to get the fuel flow, and consequently you lose time on pit lane.
Look at those Florida skies. Calendar perfect, Chamber of Commerce weather. As the Dean of American Motorsports journalist Chris Economaki used to say, 65 degrees, a fairly stiff breeze at 16 miles an hour. And note sunset and sunrise. What distinguishes this race from its sister 24-hour event at Le Mans primarily is the hours of darkness. That race takes place in June, very little darkness here. You get a good 12 hours of it.
The thing is, though, with these lights here at Daytona, it's like driving during the day for 24 hours. Talking to some of the drivers who were here for the very first time, they couldn't believe how lit this place is.
Didn't used to be that way, that's for sure. Green flag.
We are back underway. Prototypes to the fore.
Tell you what, Alex Gurney was impressive in qualifying. He's even more impressive in my mind right now, the pace he's showing in race trim. They said they spent a lot of time working on the car for the longer runs, and it's showing right now.
Second place car to the right of your screen is a local favorite, the Spirit of Daytona, currently driven by Richard Westbrook, and they were quick in virtually every session of the test that took place about 3 weeks ago. They've been quick all weekend, but right now he's looking at Alex Gurney's taillights.
But right now, Dorsey, I mean, you don't want to push too hard. If the balance isn't quite there, don't stretch the performance any further. Just settle in, keep the car towards the front of the pack. So Scott Dixon lock up the brakes on the 0-2 machine, coming into that hairpin as he was starting to put the pressure on Bert Frizzell, who's had a great start in the number 9 Action Express machine.
Picking up the action in the GT Le Mans class, where we'll be looking for Jonathan Bomarito in the number 91 SRT Viper. There he is.
So like you said, Calvin, you got to find your rhythm. You got to get a pace where you're not hurting the car. There, you're running these laps off without too much drama behind the wheel, if you will, because it's a long way to go. And if you feel like you're wearing yourself out, you're hitting the car as well.
Let me correct myself. That's Mark Goossens in the 91. Bomarito is 2 cars ahead of him there to the left of your screen in the 93.
Yeah, Bomarito has really impressed that SRT team, Dorsey, over the last couple of seasons. He got drafted in as an endurance driver, and boy, he put in a performance at Petit Le Mans at the end of 2012. They said, we need him in here full time. So he's a really bright, young American prospect.
And I was saying right there, Calvin, look at the lights on the side, and it tells you what position the cars are in. There's your 3rd place car. Of course, the one behind it. During the night, you're going to see that. It'll stick out a lot more prominently, and you'll be able to tell who it is that's winning and who it is that's chasing.
SRT 1-2, Aston Martin 3rd, but here comes the first of the Porsches. Nick Tandy, he won the final ALMS race last year at Petit Le Mans, and he's looking really impressive here on these high banks. That Porsche is stout.
Yeah, well, you don't want to count the Porsche out of an endurance event ever. They're really, really
tight there. The Corvette digs it in the corner.
And they're going to rub a little bit right as they come off.
That's Oliver Gavin in the bright yellow number 4 Corvette C7R.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little early to be rubbing the sides of your car on somebody in a 24-hour race.
Ironically, Ollie actually substituted for one of the AMR drivers at COTA last year, so he knows the AMR, the Aston Martin Racing Squad, extremely well. But that was pushing things there.
Now, the crew chiefs they watch our broadcast, guys. They'll be on the radio right now saying, all right, what are you thinking here? You know, what have you been rubbing the car all to pieces already? I remember when we drove for Jack Roush, Calvin, if you got going a little too fast and you put in a fast number, you would hear about it.
You would definitely hear on the horn pretty quickly from Jack.
And yes, that is the Jack Roush, who is well known to NASCAR Sprint Cup fans. Back in the day, Roush Racing drove the Ford Motorsports Company road racing program and scored lots of victories here at Daytona and elsewhere.
They were dominant for so many years, Dorsey, in this form of competition, with this race, with the GT classes.
I'd like to see him get back in it. Jack won 10 years consecutive and actually entered 11 times and won all 11, so he's undefeated back in the day. Things are a little different now, though, I should say, than what they were then.
Spoke to Jamie Allison from Ford Racing this morning. He said we would love to get back in the GTLM category. They'd like to see some equivalency across the board around the world with the global GT championships. Certainly has got a keen interest in looking at that category for the future.
Ironically, three of us, you, myself, and Tommy Kendall, all won with that team here at the 24. So that's amazing to have three of us here.
They must be really good if we won.
Yeah.
Battle in the GT Daytona class. Christopher Haas, the pole-sitting car, and Tony Vilander goes, Mika Salo, another Finn, goes whistling by in a Ferrari.
Sure did.
We have a lead change in GT Daytona already. Now, the classic strategy in a race as long as 24 hours, keep the car clean, don't run at your absolute pace, run a conservative pace, but stay in touch with the class leaders. Boy, oh boy, in recent years, the Rolex 24 has become a complete shootout.
We talk about the caliber of teams, of machinery, and of drivers in the GTD category. Mika Salo, who currently leads, is an ex-Ferrari Formula One driver. That's how stout the competition is here this year.
In fact, 39 of the drivers in this field have experience in Indy cars, and a couple of dozen of them have actually won races. That's the quality of driver you get here.
See ominous smoke there from that number 5 Action Express machine, Dorsey, as he came out of the infield.
Saw a little of that before. I didn't want to mention it because I thought it went away, but I guess it has not. Hopefully it's nothing more than an oil tank, a surge tank that's spilling oil out on the header, but awful early to be even having that happen. There's a Sky-Active diesel-powered car. That smoke is diesel smoke. It's not an engine type of This is a big effort for Mazda to come in here with these still relatively stock production-based diesel engine, twin turbo.
The bump, if not, I'm going to put more front brake in it. Just, I think it's a temperature issue because it's hotter than what we had expected before.
Sylvain Tremblay giving radio communication back to his team there about what the balance of the car is, what the braking performance is. And this team had problems here at the 24-hour last year when they debuted their GX machine with similar power plants, but went on to dominate that championship.
Certainly one of the most beautiful prototypes out here, and I'm with you, Dorsey. It's a bold move by Mazda to prove their road technology using an engine that is basically 70% street version of their Sky-Active diesel. Now there's problems for the sister car. Let's go to Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, I'm down here, and there seems to be a problem with one of the water pipes on the car. This is a Lola chassis originally, which has been worked up. It's a brand new motor car. It's a very exciting project. Of course, we've seen diesels winning races. We've seen the Audis at Le Mans, but this is a much smaller diesel engine than they use. It's a brave venture. They are on a learning curve, and that's obvious from what I'm looking at right now. But they're just trying to sort out this water pipe at the moment, and then hopefully Joel Miller will be back on his way.
One of the interesting things about this project with Mazda is that they're trying to leave as much of that engine as possible stock, so that they use that as a test bed. They get the technology here on the racetrack that can further better the engine on the road as it comes into a production-based vehicle.
They've also announced a new program to promote young American drivers in sports car racing, which is great to see as well. There is pole sitter Alex Gurney in the Red Dragon, the number 99 Corvette prototype from Gainesco, trying to follow in his father Dan's tire tracks and win a sports car race here at Daytona. They're your class leaders. We'll be back. to a Chamber of Commerce day here at Daytona International Speedway. Moments ago, the most unusual car in the field, that one. The Delta Wing Nissan had a bit of a problem.
It's into turn one with too much speed, locks up rear brake, looks like the left rear tire, and takes a muscle milk car around the outside the long way.
Plasgraf had nowhere to go. He's just trying to see if he's going to come back across his bow. There's a nice runoff area there, but Andy Merrick is really driving hard in this Delta Wing. The theory with this car, it's half the weight, half the horsepower, but half the drag. So if it's going to work anywhere, it'd be at tracks like Le Mans and here on these high banks at Daytona.
It is unusual. Notice the tiny narrow track at the front, the Delta Wing shape, set to make the most of its power and its fuel and its tires with lightweight. And I said Nissan, actually that was the engine last year when the car first raced internationally. It's now Mazda powered.
Mazda little engine put together by Alan there, close to their shop in Braselton, Georgia. This is a great battle here, first and second in Prototype Challenge, led by Bruno Junqueira. He was on the verge of a Formula One career, has had IndyCar wins, and right now in one of the challenge classes, we talk about the quality and the depth of this field. That's the type of guy you've got leading this class right now.
And of course, Prototype Challenge is in fact a spec car. They all have the same engine, they all have the same chassis, so the better driver combinations that you put in there, the more performance you're going to have.
There's Renger van der Zande.
Easy for you to say.
He is really quick, put in some tremendous performances last year, and this class is going to be sensational. When we look at some of the finishing drivers this year in the sprint races, it's going to be truly dynamic. Right now we've got the best in the business going head-to-head at the start of 24 hours also.
Van der Zande, a young Dutchman who was the sensation of the test 3 or so weeks ago, along with his teammate Sam Bird, the young British driver, graduate of the GP2 category. Really quick young men.
One of the Mazdas in trouble, looks like. The 07 limping.
The car was in pit lane, and Andrew Merritt reported that it had some kind of water pipe issue.
Now, how do you get out of the way?
Right there, it's impossible. You just do what he's doing, which is stay off the line as much as humanly possible, but right there, it's really tight.
This team is operated from the Speed Source shops. They've had 2 class wins here with Mazda Power back in 2008 and 2010 in the GT category. So this is a big jump for this team, but they've got some great personnel in that group. I'm sure they'll get on top of these prototype cars very quickly.
It is a diesel, but it shouldn't be smoking that badly down there on the apron. So I suspect with the water pipe, maybe it got hot and has done damage.
Now there's a car and a team owned by a familiar name, actor racer Patrick Dempsey, who will drive the full season this year with that man, Andrew Davis from Georgia. A terrific little GTD Porsche. It's called a GT America, and it is the single most populous model in the field. 12 Porsche GT Americas designed and built especially for this series in this race.
Well, Andrew has won the GT Championship before. And he dispels the myth that you can't be nice and be fast, because he is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the paddock. But boy, can he get the hammer down, and great to see him teamed up with Patrick for this season.
Porsche does an amazing job at building these race cars. You actually buy them from Porsche, and they will build this year 300 plus customer cars that can be bought and brought straight to the racetrack. And guys, they're all competitive.
They have really had to ramp up their motorsports department. There's a championship called the World Endurance Championship, which is on a global scale, and they're going to enter that, go up against the likes of Audi this year with a Porsche prototype machine. They've got a GT entry there, they've got the GTLM entry here, and then all of these customer-supported teams as well. Tremendous load on that organization.
This is another Prototype Challenge battle.
Teammates here, I think. I think this is Junqueira and Tagliani. They used to do battle in the Champ Car days. Now they're doing battle for the same team, Rocket Sports Racing and Paul Gentilosi's group, as they head down to turn 1.
You saw them drafting each other, you know, for the NASCAR fans and so forth out there. One thing that these guys have to deal with that NASCAR doesn't is buffeting. When you're up behind somebody else in one of these open cockpit cars, that wind coming off the other car is hitting you right in the helmet, right in the face if it were, and it shakes you around like you're just a rag doll inside the car. Totally different experience.
Classic example of the depth of talent in the driver lineup in this series. Both Tagliani and Bruno Junqueira have started from the front row at the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Tag is pretty excited to be driving one of these cars. Filled in for Dario Franchitti at the final race of the IndyCar Championship last year. Was hoping for a full-time ride, but when that didn't exist, he was more than happy to turn his attention to sports cars. This is Van der Zade getting down on the inside of Junqueira there.
Junqueira
was for the lead.
Yeah, he was paying attention to the slower car in front of him, the GT car, trying to figure out where he was going to go, and he left that door open.
Look for the blue number 3 on the side of Alex Tagliani's car. There you see it just behind the front wheel. That's his position in the class behind new leader Renger van der Zande and Bruno Junqueira.
Very nimble cars, Calvin. And like I said, they all weigh the same. They all have the same engine horsepower and so forth. You have to go at 10/10 with these cars the whole way.
Quite a test of man and machine. Now the wind has turned 180 degrees from what we had yesterday. So while the cars were set up to go into a headwind through the infield, it's now a tailwind, and a strong one down the backstretch.
We haven't heard anybody hitting on the rev limiter yet where the engine is limited to its RPMs. We saw that yesterday when we had the tailwind on the front straight. Look at this, 3 wide up on the bank now.
There we go. They're the 2 SRT Vipers. Bomarito in the yellow and blazing car, and that's the Goose, the pole sitter, going around the outside.
Well, the 007 is a GT Daytona car, one of a new broad-based effort by Aston Martin here in North America, in the hands of Kevin Buckler, whose Racers Group organization has won this race overall with a GT car and added 3 other class wins at the Rolex, as well as winning at Le Mans. They are now running a massive Aston Martin program with 3 professional series and 1 spec Aston only series.
Look at this, here comes that first of those Porsches. Nick Tandy looking really racy here, starting to put the heat on the SRT Vipers, and maybe that's why Goosen's wanted his way by his teammate Bomarito, because he's feeling the heat from behind with Nick Tandy, one of the Porsche factory drivers.
Did you see how the SRT Viper that got trapped in the middle became like the ping pong ball? It started losing its stability and moving closer to its team car. That wasn't intentional at all. That's the car being pushed aside by the wind off the 2 cars on either side.
Look at this battle, 1st through 5th within our frame right now. So it's SRT Viper 1-2, then the first of the Porsche, then Jimmy Bruni looking really strong in that Risi Competizione red Ferrari, then right behind them the first of the Corvettes.
Listen to the sound of this big Chevy V8.
Between the GTLM machines and one of the prototypes coming through.
Kind of a strange noise when he got on the brake at the end when he went into that inner loop. Here it is again. I don't know if that's gearbox, if that's the noise of the gearbox as it goes down. I think that's what we're hearing there.
The beautiful race car, so much technology. They really have to transfer technology from their production vehicles over to the race cars and vice versa. Look at this battle here. Bruni putting the heat on Tandy. Almost trading paint. Maybe a bit of argy-bargy as they go down to the kink.
Fastest corner on the course on the infield. Lets him go.
That left-hand kink. Ferrari, Porsche, and Corvette. That Porsche, by the way, for the first time ever, is a North America-only factory team. Porsche running 3 factory GT operations around the world. This one exclusively for the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. Coming to life here at Daytona International Speedway. We'll be back in just a moment here on Fox. Welcome back to Daytona, coming to the end of our first of 2 hours here on Fox. One of the world's greatest sports car classics, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, now in its 52nd running. Kicking off the new TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. 12 race series you'll see on the Fox family of networks all year long. You just saw one of the GT cars straight line the chicane. You'll have to wait at the exit until traffic passes as our pole sitter and current leader Alex Gurney in the Red Dragon soldiers on.
Yeah, there's no penalty for that. If you get forced through that chicane or if you make a mistake, as long as you come to a complete stop, wait for the marshal to wave you on so you don't gain any lap time advantage. No harm, no foul.
Racing at second place, Richard Westbrook, still there with the spirit of Daytona, number 90. And talk about courage. He had a massive accident in a test last fall here at Daytona.
Right in that area of the racetrack, Bob. It was under braking for turn one. Suddenly had a problem. Car got airborne, nearly went into the grandstands. In fact, totally destroyed the car. And he was really shook up, but he said, I tell you what, this week he told me, this has really transformed this race team. They dug deep, they got together. 3 weeks later, we were back out with a brand new race car, and things have never looked brighter for Spirit of Daytona. They've got a great driver lineup here. Richard Westbrook, Valiente for the year, and DTM current champion, Mike Rockenfeller, a former winner of this race, joins the squad. They're going to be tough to beat here.
And what's amazing about that is when they rebuilt and they built a new car, they took it out and it was fastest at the top of the time sheets, and it's been up there first or second since that point in time.
And there's the third place car, reigning IndyCar champion Scott Dixon, in one of two cars from Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates.
The first of the Ford powered, the new EcoBoost twin turbo V6. Early days for this, they had problems at the test, and they have been working flat out for the last 3 weeks to get these cars ready for this 24-hour marathon. There have been what we call a balance of performance change to some of the prototype machinery, and talking to the Ford guys this morning, they said seems to have helped the Chevy a little bit more than the Fords. It's been a change across the board, but it's affected that Ford Turbo a little bit more. They said we were close on top speed at the test, now we're about 2 miles an hour off. That will be effective here over this 24-hour race with the amount of straightaway you see.
Here's a look at Bert Frizzell, a young American driver in a Corvette prototype. He's going to hit the pit lane.
He just turned the fastest race lap. Of course, it's early in the race. However, he wanted to go fast because he was coming in, Cal. You run that last lap as hard as you can.
You do. Use it up, particularly if you're going to do a tire change. You don't even care if you flat spot the tires, bring it into the pit. So 23 laps, that included that short yellow period. So we'll have to look at fuel strategy and economy as the race progresses. Chris?
Well, we can see the 9 car coming to pit lane. The sister car was having overheating issues early in this race. The 9 car looking at the front of that grill has got a big piece of paper right on the grill, so they're going to have to clean that off. We're also talking about changing the air blocker, going to that radiator, trying to let some more air in to cool this motor. Jamie?
Also in on pit road, Muscle Milk Pickett Racing, Klaus Gropp and that Oregon Nissan making their stop. Klaus in the car, he doesn't have a drink bottle in there, so the team had to give him one so he could get a sip of water. Perfectly clean stop for those guys.
One advantage of having that open cockpit is it is much cooler, obviously. The guys in the closed cockpit cars, particularly in extreme conditions that we'll see more in the summer than we do in the early months of the year, it is a real heat factor for these drivers, so they need to replenish their fluids during the stint and certainly during the course of a 24-hour race, Dorsey.
That's a very good point, Calvin. Tonight, those open cockpit cars are going to be really cold. As far as I'm concerned, they will be. But the guys in the closed cockpit cars get really hot. They get around 140 plus degrees in there, and you're baking the whole time you're sitting there.
Well, anyone who thinks that a seasoned professional racing driver is not an athlete is kidding himself. Just the reason you mentioned, Dorsey. Extreme circumstances in the car, high speeds, danger everywhere. Now, Patrick Dempsey has taken over the Porsche. Excuse me, Andrew Davis is still in the car. We want to go down to the pit lane and hear from Patrick Dempsey with Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, here he is. Heartthrob, racing historian and racing driver too, Patrick. And you're getting yourself hyped up now because you're going to get in the car in a minute.
Yeah, about 5 laps I'll get in the car. It'd be good to get in the car and get the first stint out of the way and settle into the race. And the morning's been long already, so it's nice to get the race started.
Now, you brought some European help in. You've got Franz Conrad helping you and famous engineer Chris Crawford. Is that a good move?
Yeah, I think the combination of this has been really good. They know the cars really well. They've helped us on the technical side and understanding how to get the car to go faster. It's been a big learning curve. We got the car late, so we're learning as we go along. Not a lot of track time for us, but we'll be all right in the race, I think. We got a strong car.
And Patrick, when you get in that car, you're all alone. You haven't got all those eyeballs on you. It must feel sweet.
You're finally alone, and you can enjoy it.
Thanks very much. Have a great stint, mate.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
That is really a revamped team. They've got Hurley Haywood, the legendary Hurley Haywood, got 5 overall wins here. He's acting as a consultant for the group this weekend. They've got a new engineer in Jim Bell. they've got one of the Porsche factory drivers, Mark Lieb, as one of the co-drivers.
One of the team cars for Dempsey Racing right there. You see the 28 in a little trouble here. Getting into the International Horseshoe a little too deep, locks up the front.
I think he was trying to follow the same speed as one of the prototypes that has a lot more downforce, and just kind of suckered him in there. Made a little mistake. Hopefully didn't flat spot the tires too badly.
Lance Wilsey driving. Now here comes our pole sitter and race leader for a green flag stop. Chris?
Yeah, Alex Gurney bringing the Red Dragon to pit lane for the first time. Going to be fuel and 4 brand new Continental tires. Checked in with the team. They're not anticipating any changes on this stop. A little bit slow to get the car off the ground. They initially tried to get that air jack to engage there, but the first hose they used would not get the car off the ground. So they had to go to their secondary hose. So fuel and tires for the 99. Matt?
And the 0-1 of Scott Pruitt, the 5-time winners in. They've already changed the right side tires, topping them off with fuel. Now several laps before the stop, he's been complaining that, like flipping a switch, he lost a lot of rear grip. Then he diagnosed it as a lower class car in front was leaking a considerable amount of fluid. Now they have some issues. There they go. They finally got the jacks down and he's away. But he did not need a tear off. It was a car leaking fluid. He's away.
Very rarely do you see a Ganassi pit stop that is not superb, and I tell you the reason for that. They have been scrambling the last 3 weeks just to get the car ready. I spoke to their team manager, Timmy Keane. He said, we have not practiced one pit stop in the shop like we normally do. We normally have 14, 15 days of regular pit stop practice. It's costing them early in this race, but they'll figure it out. It's early days right now.
There is the former ALMS champion car, muscle built.
On the apron, guys, running slow.
Going slowly. Now this is a different car than they won the championship with. It's
brand
a French
new race car for this team.
Yep, Orica Nissan.
Car looks good. I don't see any indication of what's going on. We'll have to watch when it gets to the pits. Richard Westbrook did come in with the Spirit of Daytona car. They had no drama in their pit stop. He stayed in. Let's see what happens with this car. I don't see any flat tires anywhere.
The pit lane speed limit is 60 kilometers an hour.
Right front's down.
Yep, puncture. Jamie Howe.
Team Muscle Milk Racing back in. They have made the decision, though, to go ahead and change all 4 of the tires. Klaus Stroff was on the team with the radio saying that they did have a tire issue. They're not going to risk anything at this time. They're going to go ahead and take 4 new Continentals. Matt?
And Jamie Scott Dixon has brought in the other Ganassi car, the 0-2. Still issues on the stop. Finally complete on the left rear. Reset the fuel. He is away.
Once again, not the smoothest of pit stops, so they'll discuss this. They typically take some video of their pit stops. They'll look at it and see what's going awry, and they just haven't had enough time to practice that. And there are new rules in place this year, so you've got to learn those as well.
Great stories coming in. The dominant team in this race in recent years, Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabatas, very much a question mark this year. All new car and driveline combination. Former ALMS champs are on their way. We'll be back to Daytona. We are back live at Daytona. 52nd Rolex 24. I'm Bob Barsha with Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader. Down to the pit lane, Chris Neville and Matt Yoakum. Reminding things, back in the chicane, here are the GTLM battle. Jonathan Bomarito and the SRT Viper with the yellow roof right there. Being chased by his teammate Mark Goossens in the pole-sitting car in class. Then the Ferrari of Gian Maria, known as Jimmy Bruni.
These cars have much bigger fuel tanks in their race cars, so they're able to go a little bit long. We're seeing all the prototypes now haven't made that first stop. These cars will go a little bit longer and have a bigger, what we call a fuel window. That's the window that they can stay on the racetrack, how many laps, how many minutes, and should be about 50 to 55 for the GTLM machines. Of course, caution saves a bit of fuel as well.
Don't be surprised if tomorrow morning the race looks just like this, because these cars run like this 24 hours. They'll not get separated by much.
And Dorsey's not kidding. They will do this through the night, and if you come back tomorrow morning to our coverage here on the Fox family of networks, they will still be thundering around.
It's just amazing that you can run 24-hour race and then never get separated by more than just about like that. That's how competitive it really is out there.
Jimmy Bruni in that red Ferrari. He is absolutely dynamite in one of these GT machines. So many titles over the last decade, driving for the Ferrari brand.
Got to be so cognizant on the racetrack of other cars around you. You see the Delta Wing coming up behind. It's faster. It's going to be faster going into the inner loop up here. Can he get around these guys? No, he's blocked by them right now.
The other thing with that Delta Wing, with that narrow front nose on it, it's hard for the drivers to see this car coming up behind in the mirrors. So for the drivers of the Delta Wing, you have to really pay attention, read the language of the car that you're trying to get by to make sure they've seen you coming.
Now the drivers are coached in the driver meeting. If you see a faster car coming up from behind, stay low, hold your line, and let the overtaking car take the high line and make a clean pass.
It's so much more fluent that way. It's so much easier if the slow car just stays to the low side. The fast guys just carry the momentum right around you. Doesn't slow you up. But trouble here down in turn 1, I think, for the 94.
The Turner BMWs, yep.
It was turn 1. Got in there a little hot, I would suspect.
Running in the GTD class, Dane Cameron.
Up into the top 5 there, so it's been a great run for that car early in the going, but off in the runoff area, so we'll have to wait and see if there's a problem with a race car or whether
so easy
in the gray.
Easy to misjudge your brake zone down there into 1. It goes from 31 degrees banking here at Daytona into that tri-oval at 18, and then when you make that turn down into turn 1, it goes to nothing. You're dead on the flat, so it's really easy to get to a turn down there.
He gets hammered from behind. Wow.
Yeah, he just got used up there. One of the Ferraris into the back.
I think that was Rhoda maybe in the 49 who just misjudged the braking point completely and takes him out. Big concern is with the rear diffuser type arrangement, the bodywork underneath the skin, whether that has been damaged, but certainly Dane is not up to speed completely right now.
Good look at Michael Shank's car, Ford EcoBoost, powered as they come to what looked like a routine stop.
Well, he was in just a few laps ago, Dorsey.
He might have tire issues, I think, because they were just pointing at the back there. Changing right front, left rear.
No, actually, he pitted on lap 8, so I think he's okay. This should be routine, I believe.
Yeah, he's getting them all now.
Yep.
Winners of this race just a couple of years ago. Here's the Mazda prototypes, and the 31 has gone around. Another prototype car.
It's a new car for these guys. They ran a Corvette last year in the GT class.
Won the final Grand Am GT race at Lime Rock Park. A great win for Lawson Archenbach and this man, Eric Curran, who's now behind the wheel of this prototype car.
Big Boris said in that car as well.
Third car back on the approach. Oh, he gets sliding around. Heavy on the brakes. Couldn't make the turn.
What? He got loose in, Calvin, and it snapped on him.
Yeah, he got loose in, and then he released the brakes, and he had the steering pointing to the right at that point and took him for a ride over there.
Sure did. Lucky he didn't turn up into the wall there. It's quite fast.
Factory Porsche, number 912.
I like that 911 RSR on the top of the fender there. It's a sharp-looking car. Nice, clean lines.
This team's having to relearn the new pit stop regulation in the American Le Mans Series. You couldn't refuel and do tire changes and servicing at the same time. So it's really a new era for teams that have regularly been competing in the American Le Mans Series. We now merge the two together in the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship.
All 3 drivers in that car, Porsche factory drivers. The best drivers Porsche can find. They put them under contract. One of them, Patrick Long, the only American Porsche factory driver. And he is just as proud as he can be to be a part of a dedicated American Porsche factory effort.
Well, he's had so much success. He's really been a leading light in GT competition. He won this race in the GT class back in 09. He's won Sebring. He's won Le Mans a couple of times. He won Petit Le Mans. So he's won all of the big Enduros. Now he wants another championship.
Riding on board with Ollie Gavin in the awesome Corvette. Hear how smooth those shifts are, paddle shifts. They don't have to lift off the accelerator to shift. It does it for them. It's not an automatic transmission. It is going to come in the pits this lap. He's dropped down in the pit lane. Good look at Ollie.
As we said, these cars, bigger fuel cells, and the prototypes, they stretch it a little bit longer. You see he's allowed to loosen the belts but not unbuckle them in preparation for this driver change. Matt?
Calvin, they gave him the to-do list on his way down pit road as far as to switch off the car completely for safety. Also going to clean the windshield, 4 tires and fuel for the Ford machine. No changes, though, expected for the vet.
Meanwhile, the other factory Porsche, the 911, clever way to number a car, 911 RSR, is in.
See, the one hose on the right side of the car was putting fuel in. The hose on the other side was the vent hose.
That's kind of clever. They ran the hose down the boom, so the fueler just has to drop the nozzle and they pull it in from the other side of the pit wall. Limited number of personnel over the wall on any pit stop, so you want to be as efficient as possible at multitasking.
You see some different strategies there. Corvette just doing single stints with their drivers. Nick Tandy stayed behind the wheel of this Porsche, and at night sometimes you'll see these guys stretch it to 3 or 4 stints consecutively. If you're in the groove, in the rhythm, that may be the efficient way to go.
Here's the 78 car. This car is a good story. A late entry from the Star Works team, Peter Barron. They got the car out there, BMW power. Brendan Hartley, the young New Zealander, started the car, and he has passed over 60 cars. They were sent to the back for a small technical violation, and they are rocketing through this field.
And he is a stud. He is really a star in the making. Brendan Hartley. He scored a victory last year in the Grand Am Series. He's now one of the Porsche factory guys, and great to see BMW represented. A late switch by Ganassi Racing to the Ford power plant really meant that BMW weren't well represented in the field this year, but this is a late entry and it's showing its stuff.
On his way goes Hartley. Oops, looks like someone's headed behind the wall for some kind of repair. We'll take a break and return live to Daytona. Stay with us. Welcome back to Daytona. The 52nd Rolex 24. We'll give you a look at our leaderboards, the top 10 at each of the 4 classes in competition. IndyCar champion Scott Dixon leads in the 02. Riley Ford for Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Savadas.
Then you see the first of the Chevys, Alex Gurning, the pole sitter, then Ricky Taylor.
Here's a look at the prototype challenge class. Renger van der Zande took the lead early in the race, and he has held it to this point. About a 3.5-second lead over Sean Rahal. 10 seconds to Gunnar, 14 to Gunnar Jeanette. Here's the GT class. Bill Auberlen leading in a BMW for the factory team, co-owned by Bobby Rahal, David Letterman, and Mike Lanigan. Over the pole-sitting car in class, the SRT Viper of Mark Goosens.
Yeah, and Halen at the top of the GT Daytona bunch. This is a really competitive class, as you can see. Remember, all the pit stops, everybody shuffled around right now, so it'll work its way back through as we go forward.
Now here's a problem for the Extreme Speed HPD Honda powered car. Got it wrong in the chicane.
I said earlier on this would cause a lot of trouble before the night was over. Big hit on the tire wall on that right rear side.
I believe this car had just pitted, so maybe it was just a cold tire situation, caught the driver out.
Half a lap away from the pit lane, and it looks like it might have a broken toe link on the right rear. You see how it's dog walking down that. Yeah, he's hurt the right rear suspension. But I'm sure they can fix that. They'll have all that stuff, Calvin, on pit lane.
They will. It's all about being prepared for this type of disaster, and as the teams that can respond. We see another problem here in the infield.
Is that the first place car in PC? 7th place, says the leader light.
Don't see any damage on the body. Could have been just a simple spin, but that's not a good place to go off either. It's downhill off that corner.
Tommy Dreese behind the wheel right now, former Trans Am champion. He's been a pretty good regular in this class of competition for the past few seasons. Had a few victories.
Another spin.
Oh, wow, that's the sister car. This is not the same car that was grabbing into the pit lane.
Now I'm thinking maybe
the other ESM machine.
I'm thinking maybe we got some oil down situation out there or something. Two of them going in around.
Right, that's Scott Sharp. He is very, very experienced, a champion in any number of different formula. Must be something on the
Yeah, there's something at the entry of that corner that's catching these guys out.
You can see what it does.
It won't rev.
The engine won't rev.
That could be a broken, these are fly-by-wire cars, so it could be the throttle position switch.
Maybe that's what caused the spin if you don't have that throttle response.
That doesn't work.
Oh boy, this could be tight. You
close.
saw one of the GT Daytona cars having to take evasive action around the outside in the grass.
Scott's got damage on the right front corner at the splitter. I don't know if he got into it with someone on the entry there or what happened.
Former IndyCar champion,
They got down
former.
underneath him and he slammed the door on me.
Yeah, there was car
First
contact.
thought on these things.
Yeah, he's saying someone slammed the door on him as he got into the break and turning point for that corner. Let's take a look. Down to the inside. Yeah, that's the Oak Racing machine. Did kind of pinch Scott a little bit.
And that was the damage I saw. You see one of those support struts sticking up. This was really
Look at
scary.
this.
Yeah. Tell you what, the Porsche driver there did a really good job of reading that. That could have been disastrous. If he'd locked the brakes up, Calvin, he'd gone straight into him.
And that is the fine line that you have to walk when you're racing hard for 24 hours. Those type of scenarios, do you push it? Do you stick your nose down the inside and get it chopped like that and then end up with potential damage?
Also talked about flat spotted tires, of course, when he locked those brakes down. He slid for quite a ways with the tire not moving. Those won't last long either. He'll have to come in to get that repaired. Take a look at that front. Just superficial damage right below the headlight on the right front.
He elected not to pit. There's a look at the 0-2 from Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates, the leader of the overall. Earlier we mentioned a brand new powertrain in that car, a twin turbo V6 from Ford Motor Company. Let's go to Chris Neville.
And Raj Nair, Vice President of Global Product Development at Ford Motor Company, down in the Ganassi area, enjoying the action down here. And Raj, you've got some EcoBoost technology in the back of those Ganassi cars, and a lot of that technology is in cars people have at home. What's it like to have that technology transfer racetrack to street car?
Oh, it's fantastic. The car that's in the lead right now, about 77 of the parts, are exactly the same as the EcoBoost and our customers' F-150 or Explorer Taurus. So it's a great testament to the technology and the efficiency we have in that engine.
Is it a little bit nervous on your part to debut such incredible technology on such a global stage?
Well, we're always a little bit nervous bringing a new engine and a brand new installation, but we've got great partners here with Ganassi and Michael Shank and Roush Yates, and we're really happy with how it's been running on the dynos, so we've got our fingers crossed, and being in the lead right now isn't too bad.
Yeah, this team has done a lot of testing with that motor, and guys, just to let you know, listening to drivers on the radio, a lot of them saying the bus stop very slick.
I can attest to that by where I'm sitting.
That's right.
We've been seeing
the
that.
pictures tell the story. Thanks, Chris.
This is a great effort by the Ganassi Group and Ford Racing in terms of the problems that they had at the test just 3 weeks ago to knuckle down and work literally 24/7 to ensure that this engine is in good shape for the start of this race. They said they did five 24-hour runs on the dyno. They're very confident about it, but they did say if it comes into a head-to-head battle, the Chevy seems to have a little bit more top speed with this latest change to the regulations.
In case you're wondering, the winner of this race will probably cover something in the area of 2,600 miles over the 24 hours. And that new Ford drivetrain was tested well beyond 3,000 miles on a dynamometer that can mimic all of the shifts and basically put it through all of the stresses of a lap here at Daytona International Speedway.
These
Amazing stuff.
These new engine blocks are really rocket science. It's actually called compacted graphite iron, CGI. It's a metallurgically modified form of cast iron. It's 75% stronger. It's lighter than conventional gray iron, 45% stiffer. They can build a lighter engine, a smaller displacement between the pistons, and not overheat and not have any stress factors. Pretty rocket science stuff going on.
As impressive as the engine is, I'm even more impressed you got it out correctly, Dorsey.
that was a vote. I wrote it down. I stumbled on the metallurgically part. I thought you were going to call me.
On board here with Ricky Taylor. He returns to his father's team, Wayne Taylor Racing, to team up with his brother on a full-time basis. And they even dragged the old man out, Wayne Taylor, to join the party for this Daytona 24-hour race. Fun to see.
Talked to Wayne. I said, Wayne, how is it? He goes, they won't let me in it. I don't know.
It's the two boys, Jordan and Ricky Taylor, with Max Angelelli, Wayne's longtime partner, and a spectacularly successful racing driver in his own right, as is Wayne. But when you ask Wayne about driving with his sons, he kind of looks at his toes and says, well, it was always a goal of mine, and I figured if I was going to do it, I'd better do it soon. So good luck to them. Now let's go to Matt Yoakum.
And Wayne is watching on top of the pit box, getting ready to go in for his one and only stint in the 10 machine today as they make family history. And Wayne, you've dreamt about this day. Once you made the announcement, now it's all come to fruition. Does this reality match the dream of being able to race with your sons, much like if Archie Manning had a chance to play football with his boys?
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing. It's pretty emotional as well. And, you know, this opportunity might never come again. So we're going to, you know, take it full hands. And Ricky's doing a great job. So I'm just looking forward to them letting me in the car at some point.
What was it like for you waking up today, race morning, knowing you're putting on the Nomex again and you're going to have a chance to go out and play with the boys? So many special moments. It's hard to believe that, you know, back in '96, there were 4 and 6 when you went to Victory Lane here for the first time.
My first thought this morning was I was scared to death. But, you know, it's something I have to do. I'm obviously not at their pace, but I just need to keep the car in one piece for them.
Good luck and congratulations on your family moment.
Thank you.
How cool is that?
Great shots of Wayne and his two boys, Jordan and Ricky, in pit lanes and victory lanes past here at Daytona.
Flanked by their mother and Wayne's wife, Shelley, who really keeps that group together. The two boys, they're extremely good race car drivers, but I think they're even better people. I mean, they're two of the most pleasant guys you'll ever want to meet in your life.
Trouble on the 49 Ferrari. That's in third place. You see on the side there, the blue number 3.
That's the car that got into the back of Dane Cameron just a few laps ago. I wonder if that created any issues with this Ferrari.
Don't see much damage when it came down pit lane, but he's going slow like he's in trouble.
A lot of these guys getting on top of their fuel mileage, and
he's a half a lap away from the pits, actually.
Yeah, potential issues there.
Trying to stay out of everyone's way. It's hard to do, as you can see how narrow it is through that inner loop.
Well, if there's an upside to having problems, at least it's a 24-hour race. If you have them early, you get things worked out, there's lots of time to get back in the hunt. Lots of time.
this one.
Welcome back live to Daytona, just past 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's about 80 minutes into the 52nd running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Twice around the clock odyssey for some of the world's great drivers and sports cars. Here's a look at our overall leader, Scott Dixon. Started the car and has held the lead pretty much since the green flag. That green flag, by the way, was waved by Pierre Filon, Frenchman who is the president of the ACO, the Automobile Club of the West, the organizers of the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France. A bit of a returned favor from Jim Kennedy, co-founder of the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series, now the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship, who performed a similar function at last year's 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Scott Dixon there, he's really hustling that leading Ganassi car right now. You can see him there getting around some traffic, getting in the gray, and the car was definitely a little bit skatey there on the outside of that corner, Dorsey.
There's the Muscle Milk entry, who we heard had some trouble on course a little bit ago.
He had a bit of an incident while we were away in break. Let's have a look.
Oh, that entry to that,
shallow
that chicane
entry
is really, really slippery. He's catching a lot of cars and drivers out. Yeah, he was really...
Dives to the inside of one of the SRT Vipers. Not the ideal angle to approach that corner. He's him down to the inside. Tries to turn the wheel, and the grip is just not there.
Viper driver doing a good job of reading the car that was spinning.
Talked about the merging of the two series. We see these two open cockpit prototypes right now. Last year, they were known as P2 machines in the American Le Mans series. There's been a lot of work to get these cars on par with the Daytona prototypes that currently lead this race, now known as just strictly prototypes. But the lap times have been very, very close. They're only about 3 or 4 tenths apart, so they've done a really good job of equalizing the two very different cars' performance.
Speaking of lap times, I've been looking at that. Alex Gurney, who is our pole sitter, is actually catching Scott Dixon, which is our leader at this point. They're only 3.3 seconds apart. They were about 3.8 a lap ago, so about a half a second quicker. That lap was Mr. Gurney.
Scott Pruitt, 5-time winner overall of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Another overall victory would make him the winningest driver ever in this great race. Now, at the top of our broadcast here in Fox, I mentioned that regular Ganassi racing driver Dario Franchitti would likely have been in this car or its sister car, the O2, but he is not. Let's hear from him now with Matt Yoakum.
The 4-time champion and 3-time Indy 500 winner here in the Ganassi pit, watching along with your good friend TK, Tony Kanaan. Number one, for all your fans globally, how are you doing as far as your recovery from the Houston accident?
Yeah, the recovery's going well. Head's a lot better. Back's pretty good. My ankle's still not great. Got quite a big limp, but working hard on therapy and stuff to get rid of that. And it's coming along.
You know, you mentioned about your new role as a leadership role here within Chip Ganassi Racing. Is this going to be something similar to maybe Rick Mears at Penske Racing? A lot of the little things, you've got so much great experiences to pass on to the younger drivers especially.
Well, hopefully it'll be as successful as that relationship that Rick has done with the Penske organization. But yeah, just using that experience that I've got, working with the drivers, the engineers, and just getting to hang out at the track with my buddies still. That's the important thing. Hang out with the team, because this is an awesome team. It's been great to be a part of it, and I'm glad we're still going to be able to do that.
Now, I've been in the trailer several times, and I've seen you hanging out with your buddies. You are brutal on them. I'm surprised that you're keeping them mentally in the game because you're so tough, and it's a lot of fun. That's that camaraderie that just keeps bringing you back.
Well, absolutely. A lot of these guys have been my friends for many years. It's kind of a multifaceted role this weekend. I'm here supporting the team. I'm here supporting my friends. And I'm here obviously supporting my brother too. And it's handy they're all in the one place. So, but yeah, it's important to keep everybody sharp, and they're a pretty brutal crowd. So the best form of a defense is attack with these guys.
You've got to always be on the offense, Bob.
No question, Matt. And it's always interested me that the bond among the fraternity of racing drivers is a very, very strong one. Dario has achieved so much, although he has lost friends in fatal racing accidents in the past, thinking of Greg Moore and Dan Weldon. And yet they come out and they race, and now Dario is hanging up his helmet after that accident in Houston in an Indy car last year. but he will still be very much a part of the racing picture, and that's great for all of us.
It's kind of unique because you spend half of the day trying to kill one another and the other half of the day loving one another after the race is over. So, you know, and it's always been that way with race car drivers, and you get really close with one another. You can hate one another at times as well, but in all, you respect one another for what we do. So it's neat to see those guys playing around.
Class leaderboards across the top of your screen. Red for the professional class, blue for the Pro-Am categories in terms of the driver's lineup. Just another day at the office, one of the factory BMWs at GT Le Mans. We'll be back. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway and our continuing Fox family of network coverage of the 52nd Rolex 24 at Daytona. Great start to this classic twice around the clock marathon. And there's IndyCar champion Scott Dixon, who has led pretty much from the green flag.
Wow, look at him fight that
Racing.
car.
Whoa, it hasn't been easy, folks.
No, that thing is not hooked up. He's doing a great job running very competitive lap times. No one's really catched him. Gurney's taken 10th or 2 maybe out, but he is fighting the handling of that race car right now.
I think the tires are gone away on the Ganassi guys. They'll be in for that soon, as we watch the 10 getting service.
No driver change for the Wayne Taylor Racing car. Matt Yoakum.
One more stint, Bob, for Ricky. A little bit extra time getting that left front wheel on. They've hit the lug, cleaned the grill. Service almost complete. Again, issues on the left rear. He taps the crewman on the leg and pulls it off. He's away.
4 men over the wall, 4 mechanics, including the fueler, 1 extra person to carry a fire extinguisher, 1 extra person who consists of the driver if there is a driver change. There wasn't on that stop. Here's the 01.
Scott Pruitt in.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh, and he clips his.
Again.
Wow.
Pull it back.
We talked about being out of sync on these pit stops.
That
We
rear's
talked
not
about
on.
being out of sync.
Very good in neutral.
This is what we talked about. When you haven't had the time to rehearse these pit stops, it can go wrong. We saw a little snafu on the first pit stop of the day. This time, big one there. The left rear was not connected.
Now they've got to check for damage.
Well, he might have messed up the threads. That's a mono-lug system.
Change in the regulations this year. You're only allowed 4 guys over the wall to do the servicing. 1 guy's going to be doing the refueling. These 3 guys and only 2 air guns on the wheel change. So there's really an orchestration that has to happen, and they got it wrong.
Scott had been complaining that he could not hang on to the car. We're going to have a look at this again. Snafu in the pit lane.
Now when the car drops off,
he didn't have the nut on.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Typically the signal to the driver is once the car has dropped off the jacks, you're good to go. And the left rear had not been tightened. Oh, see the rear
clip
wing.
by the wing, it got him, yeah.
That's why they were in those safety helmets in pit lane now, because you could get hit by the race car or your head could hit that pit wall.
Luckily, Scott stopped right away. That wheel would have come right off, no nut on it.
And that would have been a whole world of problems.
That shoulder's going to hurt tonight.
Oh, yeah. While that was going on, the number 99 Red Dragon from Gainesco, Bob Stallings Racing, started from pole in the hands of Alex Gurney, makes a stop and resumes the 37-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit. Here's the pole-sitting car in GT Daytona, the Audi.
Running in second place currently.
Paul Miller Racing, for a long time they've run Porsches and they made the switch to Audi. Paul Miller has been an Audi dealer since back in the early 80s, I believe, so it's still a good connection with what he's doing with his businesses. Here we see the 90 car. They've had a tremendous first stint. Looks like Michael Valiente, his helmet now behind the wheel. He was involved in a pretty hefty incident in the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge race yesterday, so good to see him good to go today.
Our leader in 02, Scott Dixon. What should be a routine service. We'll see if they get it right this time. We should say something about this too, guys. This is the most pit stops we'll ever see during this race. The fuel consumption on these cars and the fuel capacity, I should say, dictates that they stop every 47 minutes or so.
Matt Yoakum.
Now Scott Dixon will go one more stint, and then TK in the pit area. He is scheduled to go in next in the 0-2G.
Corrected there, it's 37 minutes, not 47.
Talk about that ground wire that has to be connected to the race car during fueling. Here we see the 10 car got hot tires. Ricky Taylor pitted before the 99, just going to give you more grip, and he whistles around the Red Dragon, takes that position away. Get back to that ground wire on the race cars. They actually use a magnet system with the Ganassi cars. This was for unsafe release from the pit box. They're going to get a penalty here.
And that could be up to a 60-second hold.
And there goes the pole car, the 99 now in the hands of Memo Gidley. Alex Gurney, who put the car on pole and started it in this race, is standing by in the pits.
You know, it's Alex Gurney who did just about 2-hour stint in that car, one of the first drivers to get out. Alex, how hard is everybody pushing out there?
I didn't hear a word you said, but the first stint was pretty smooth. They got a lot of breaks in traffic. And that was a nice thing for a change. When I came out of the pits for the second stint, got a lot of traffic and had a hard time. And Ganassi car was right in front of me, and he worked through the traffic pretty well. And maybe we had a little pace on them, I don't know. Anyway, good start for the Gainesville team.
Yeah, this team, the only reason they lost the lead was because the in and the out laps by Scott Dixon were a little bit better than the 99.
Well, Scott is definitely hustling the race car, and that will make a difference on cold tires when you go out, or warm tires when you're coming in. And back for the Formula One fans, that's what Michael Schumacher used to be renowned for. His in and out laps were sensational.
On board the 91 now. In the GT Le Mans category, this is one of the SRT Vipers.
These cars are so strong this year. They come out of the box looking good. They've been fast since the test.
On the pole.
On the pole, correct.
Running first and fourth right now. Bomarito has dropped back a little bit with a pit stop exchange.
Goosen still in the car.
Triple stinting the drivers this early on. We hear that tonight they'll be triple stinting the tires as well.
Well, it's interesting how each team puts its drivers in the car. We spoke with Timmy Keene from Ganassi Racing and Felix Sabates. He wants to get his stars in for a lot of work early on. That way they'll be tired and they will be able to sleep better. Tough for a racing driver to sleep in a 24-hour race. If you rotate the drivers quickly through the car, yes, they get a little bit of experience in the daylight right off the bat to feel and get into their rhythm a little bit, but maybe not enough so that they don't have trouble sleeping when it's their turn.
Jack Roush did it the opposite way. He said, my car's going to be really tired tomorrow. I want the drivers to be equally tired.
Yeah, interesting insight from Timmy Keene, but we know that Scott Pruitt refuses to leave the pit box typically in a sprint race, so it's hard to wind down, and Timmy said, I'm going to give him 2 really long stints, and I think the rotation was going to be Scott, then Jamie McMurray, then Scott back in again. Just try and Scott's in excess of 50 years. We won't give his exact age, so
well, I guess
maybe a little easier to tire him out, but he's certainly very, very fit. Very proud of his fitness routine, and doesn't give up anything even to the young guns.
Riding on board the number 911 Porsche, that is.
You really like saying that, don't you?
Yeah, I had to say that. And he's being very aggressive. Nick Tandy just passed a PC car and then around another.
That's the 27, the black and silver car. That's Patrick Dempsey driving in his Porsche.
He's finished on the podium here before in the GT class at the Daytona 24-hour race. Had 3 podiums last year in the GT Challenge category.
See him up on the banking here. The slower cars need to stay down by that double yellow line. Each class of faster car moves up the racetrack another notch higher.
Second place in GT Daytona, Ferrari 458 Italia.
Very clean car for this far into the race.
Looks like a pretty routine stop. IMSA officials front and rear watching everything.
Oh, another problem there.
Didn't get the hose out before they dropped the clutch.
Didn't get a full fuel load in either.
And they're just out of practice. I mean, there's a lot of rust on these crews in terms of the communication process that's needed. This is the first race of the year. For 99.9% of these teams, there was a race down in Dubai, what several of the competitors
traffic jam
did enter.
A multi-class.
Oh, look at that. That was tight.
Down the inside.
Is that Tandy?
No, I think that was Dempsey,
That was
wasn't
Dempsey.
it?
Yeah,
Dempsey got away with it.
Under a PC prototype.
That was brave.
Yes.
While this all settles down, let's go back down to the Ganassi pits. Matt Yoakum with Tim Keene.
Catching up with Timmy Keene now. Have you been able to break down exactly the hiccups you've had over the first couple stops?
Well, unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to really rehearse any pit stops till we actually got here, and that wasn't very much. And I know it's the same for everybody, but this whole nonsense of having only 2 wheel guns but the same amount of people over the wall just don't make any damn sense. It really doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's our bad. We'll take it, but I don't know. Don't make any sense having that many people over the wall and 2 wheel guns to me, but we'll figure it out.
The drivers are athletes just like the guys that go over the wall. How do you mentally keep them in the game and shrugging off this early issue?
Like I said, we just talk about it after each stop, but you know, we got to get it figured out, and we will. At least we got about 40 more stops to figure it out.
All right, thanks, Tim.
There's a pretty pragmatic view from the team manager.
One of the keys to the race, we said, was playing by the rules, and the rules, as he said, are different. Only 2 wheel guns. You've got to manipulate your crew guys to be efficient and quick with that, and there was just a miscommunication. He was told to go, the car was dropped off the jacks, and Pruitt left the pit box.
And with more pit stops to perform at a shorter interval between pit stops.
Race leader now, Joao Barbosa, and the red and white Corvette prototype up high.
Look at that GTD, the Dempsey machine down there, GTLM, the yellow Corvette prototype with Barbosa. Then there's an LMPC car in the mix.
It's a family picture.
Unbelievable.
And it's going to be like this throughout the night. They never get separated by very much around this 3.5-mile racetrack.
Well, that's a key thing. We talk about Daytona versus Le Mans. There's more sunlight in Le Mans in the summertime. It's also a longer lap, over 8 miles. So a field of 55 to 60 cars can spread out. Here at Daytona, 3.56 miles, 8 turns. You just can't get away from other cars.
Well, Barbosa had that smoke that was coming out of the back of this machine very early in the going, Dorsey. He's still running tough.
Yeah, I think it went away, whatever it was. Like I say, a lot of these guys, no, it didn't go away. There's just still a little bit. Hopefully just a little oil residue, a little leak that'll do that. They'll look at it further down the road when they have to do brakes or something. If it doesn't break before that.
He's had good pace. I tell you one thing that's ominous, fastest lap of the race so far is a 1 minute 40 seconds 0.1. And that is by one of the P2 prototype machines. Fabian Giroux.
Car looks well balanced. It's just a little bit of wisp of smoke every once in a while. I think he'll be all right. I hope he will.
Second place overall, Brendan Hartley in the Star Works car that has come through this field. Great story in the first 3 hours or so of this race. They started 64th in a field of 67. And here they are running second overall.
Yeah, Steve Dinan, who prepares these engines, must have a big smile on his face because he really didn't have a solid car in the field until very late in the going. And here we see them being a factor, and they've got some really fast drivers on this team. So if they can keep it running, they will be a factor.
This young New Zealander looked to a Formula One future, ran out of sponsorship. Got a foot in the door in sports car racing, and he is maximizing the opportunity, as a young driver must.
He certainly got the attention of Porsche last year with his performances in the Rolex series. They awarded him one of the Plum prototype seats over with the likes of Mark Webber, who's retired from Formula One racing, is now going to run in the same team as Brendan Hartley this year.
On board the SRT number 91, our lead car and GT Le Mans.
We want to thank you for joining us for these opening 2 hours of one of the world's great motorsports classics, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, here on Fox. That'll do it for our coverage of the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona here on Fox, but we'll continue right now on Fox Sports 2 and Fox Sports Go, taking you up to 9 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. And don't forget, tonight on Fox, UFC Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, featuring Josh Thompson versus Benson Henderson. For now, So long from Daytona International Speedway.
The challenges of the Rolex 24, first of all, survival.
It just seems to throw everything at you in 24 hours.
It is quite the chaotic moment when you're out there racing.
It's become almost like qualifying laps for the entire race.
You just can't make any mistakes.
It's a pretty tight track.
You've got to be able to run the pace, but you've got to stay out of the pits.
At night, it can get quite nasty.
You have to be perfect for 24 hours.
Fox Sports 2 welcomes you back to the 52nd running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona, one of the crown jewels of endurance motor racing throughout the world. It is a beautiful day at Daytona International Speedway. Welcome everyone. Brian Till, Tommy Kendall, Justin Bell, Matt Yoakum, and Chris Neville down on pit lane. You heard the drivers in the bump coming into the show say it throws all kinds of things at you. Many pitches have already been delivered. Let's take a look at the first couple hours. Right at the start, John Bennett in the number 54 prototype challenge, pushed to the outside by the pole-sitting Viper in GTLM.
A little bit of a squeeze play there. Looks like they got away with it without too much damage, but this was a big one.
Scary moment on the front straightaway. The 46 Audi from GMG Racing breaks a half shaft, and that is a wild ride.
Yeah, you look at that wall, you think you'd never hit it, but boy, he did. And just look at that nasty little spin on the way in to the bus stop for the Patrón car, and bang. I mean, that could really hurt you there and cost you damage all through the race here, Tommy.
And this was he benefited from heads-up driving from the following cars. Not a good feeling sitting parked across the track, and pit incidents as well already.
And scary moment for the Ganassi crew. You saw the pit crew member being hit, and he was up. They got the car serviced, but then a penalty had to be served by Scott Pruitt in the 0-1 for hitting that pit crew member. 4 different classes here at the Rolex 24 this year, and that is different than we've seen in years past. In the prototype category, the Pro Division with the red number plates, Scott Dixon leading over Joao Barbosa, and then Ricky Taylor. Dixon, your defending IndyCar champion. We talk about 4 different classes. There are 2 classes of prototypes. In the prototype challenge category for the Pro-Am combinations, the 08, Alex Tagliani, another one of those former IndyCar drivers, showing what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, then we go to GTLM. This is good to see, at least for me.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The Viper's up there. I've got to take off my Viper loyalties, though. I'm an independent journalist, but, I mean, they're just stacked nose to tail. And then GTD, Bill Sweedler, enjoying being in, he ran that Ferrari last year, but against the factory teams had a tough time. I talked to Townsend Bellany earlier. Good to see. They're really excited to be right at the sharp end of that grid.
Well, Tommy, both you and Justin have Viper ties, so I don't know. And Justin's got a little Corvette tie in there as well, so I'm not sure who he's going to be pulling for.
It's funny because it depends which ex-boss you're talking to at the time. You say you love them both, but it was very interesting when I saw Deshonak. He just looked at me on the grid. Hugh Deshonak, obviously with the Eureka, I was with him all through the end of the 90s, and he said, Justin, you left us just 1 year too early. Because in 2000, of course, we lost them. But look at Scott Dixon there on the banking. The whole preparation, obviously we saw a little fumble in the pits from the team a minute ago, but the Daytona prototypes do look so secure and stable up there on the banking, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many changes, least to them. So it's not a surprise to see the Daytona prototypes are leading amongst those as the combined class in the new prototype division. Battle here with the Audi. This was our pole-sitting Audi.
Christopher Haas qualified on pole, then Bryce Miller took it over through the infield, coming back to the banking, and he's going to get a little help.
Well, you can see it's hard to tell from on board, but you can see he was defending, and then it looks like he swung back, and the guy kind of did a crossover on him and got into him. So I suspect he was defending coming out. He knew the guy had a run on him, went back to the right, and the guy dove down the inside. Be interesting. We'll have to monitor. This series, both series have really cracked down on what they call avoidable contact. I don't like that term because all contact's avoidable. I think it should be, unreasonable risk or something like that. Talking to the drivers, they seem to be of the opinion that the contact today and tomorrow is unavoidable contact.
Well, I just had a tweet from Andy Lally just a little while ago, and he said, this is going to be the craziest Rolex 24 you've ever seen. People are already driving like it's the last lap, and we just saw it right there.
Yeah, and it's, you've got all different levels of drivers, and I mean, more pros in a single race than we've ever had, but you've also got a bunch of sportsman drivers as well. And that's one of the charms. When you're a driver and you're with a factory team, here's a battle for the lead. Look at that 911 car.
Nick Tandy right there up the back of Goossens. This is proper racing, guys. Look as he comes down. He's hounding the Viper, and as they catch up with a little bit of traffic, remember these GTM cars are so good on the infield, aren't they, Tommy? They're so strong on the infield, and the mix of speeds of the prototypes, and it really is tricky, but the way they weave through traffic there was very mature from all the players. The Viper, of course, Goossens wants to get a nice clean shot onto the banking, so Tandy doesn't have a run on him into the bus stop, but that may be easier said than done right now.
It's interesting watching the passing lanes. You never think of the outside of that corner as being a place to do, but it's just constant traffic. So the GT, he's underneath, big wiggle from the Viper going up on the banking, and look at the Porsche. Porsche was quickest in the Roar test, but has not shown, well, actually, qualified second. So these have been the two quickest cars throughout the weekend.
Okay, we're heading up to a bus stop game of chicken right now, because they are very equal once they get into fifth gear there. The minute they shifted into fifth, oh, look, he is on the inside. Nicely done. Of course, their mirrors were full of a PC car coming up.
I tell you what, I was impressed with how even they were top speed-wise. You could see each car had a little advantage along the banking to some extent, but they got down to that bus stop, they were dead even.
Well, and they were dead even at the start. I mean, it was literally over that whole straightaway, nothing between the two cars. Sometimes you have different power curves, different amounts of drag, aerodynamics, and so you'd see different speeds. So we've all been waiting to see how the balance of performance would turn out. The GTLM class is not dealing with the dramatic disparity like the P2 and the Daytona prototypes are, but it's still tough to. Scott Elkins and his crew has a really tough job trying to figure that out. But if you look at the quick laps from all those leading cars, they're within about 0.2 of each other thus far.
I mean, when we watch, Brian, as we watch these guys driving, I'd like to remind the viewers that you're in two types of battle here at all times. You're in an attacking one and you're in a defensive one, and you never can relax on either of them. And you see it there. I mean, the prototypes come by, or you catch up at slower GT cars. They really do have to keep complete spatial awareness and aggression awareness the whole time.
Well, what has impressed me is that the Porsche, through traffic at the end of this lap, has been able to distance himself a little bit from the Viper. I thought the Viper might be a better car in traffic because of that big V10 up front with the torque off the corner. But sometimes that works for you and sometimes it works against you.
Yeah, it can. I mean, the Viper obviously has quite a bit of torque, but you think V10, it's an 8-liter. But the restrictors that they bring everyone down, everyone's running clearly. You saw from that drag race example that both similar torque levels and similar top ends.
Well, you talk about similar top ends. You ride on board a GT LM car, but right beside him, that other Porsche is the leader in the GT Daytona category. And you can see just how the horsepower and the top speed is very similar.
Well, the horsepower is a little different, but you see how much narrower that GT Daytona car is. And at the top speed, it's power versus frontal area, or drag, basically, is the formula for top speed. And that's one of the things that's made it really difficult both for GTLM to GT Daytona, and even the prototype challenge is it's hard to, same speeds, and you got to do it all under braking, and you really got to commit to that.
Well, you got to commit to it, but you got to stay patient. And the question is, how long are they going to be able to stay patient, Justin? I mean, we're already early into this thing, and we've seen a little impatience on the part of some drivers. 22 hours in, what's it going to be like? Our leader in GTD on pit road.
As we watch the Kona pit road, it's a very important moment right now in the race, Brian. We have had a chance to settle it. The cars are settling down, but new drivers are getting in. We see a driver change going on there, I believe.
Looks like the 912 Porsche, the other factory Porsche on the left, that's a GTLM car. Then the GTD leader, the 73, it was Kevin Estra behind the wheel. There will be a driver change on the 73. So they'll get that done. They'll continue to rotate through their driver pairings. And it looks like a pretty routine stop for the 73, the 912 off good, but we understand problems for the number 90 out on the racetrack, and that is not good news for Spirit of Daytona. 90 experiencing some issues, Matt.
Now, Michael Valiente brought in the Spirit of Daytona, one of the pre-race favorites, due to something amiss with the engine. Troy Fliss, the Earnhardt Childress engine tuner, swapped out a sensor. Did that fix the problem?
Yeah, we believe we got it fixed now. We don't know if the sensor just failed or what, so it looks like we got our speed back. After about the 5th lap, we lost the top speed, and our motor wasn't running up to par. So I think we're back on par now. We'll work our way back to the front.
Hearing a number of drivers saying up and down the grid that the track is beginning to change. How is your car handling?
Right now it's pretty good. It's a little bit too free for the guys, but when the sun goes down, we'll tighten back up and get a lot of grip. So we're pretty excited, and I think we'll have a good car here when it gets nighttime.
Thanks, Troy.
Thanks.
It's not what you want to have is some kind of electrical issue early on. Those things are hard to find, and a lot of times you think you fixed them, and then 10, 15 minutes later they raise their ugly head again.
Well, and the key thing to keep in mind, a key change in rules between the American Le Mans Series and the Grand Am Series, now united under TUDOR, they've adopted more of the Grand Am approach. It's much easier to get your lap back here. And so a lot of these teams, if you just keep a cool head, don't get flustered, take your time, work through, fix it, you can get a lap back on virtually every yellow flag. So if you just have to be patient and wait for those yellows to cycle through.
All 4 classes being shown to you right there in that mix of cars. The open top cars are prototype challenge entries. You see the Spirit of Daytona prototype car. There was a GTLM car in there as well, and a GTD Viper. So you can tell just how competitive it is, and they get to those braking zones, and that's where the bottlenecks seem to be.
Yeah, and especially turn 1 and into the bus stop, because the bus stop is a really hard brake zone and a pretty quick entry point. You see one car going straight there.
I think that was I don't want any part of this.
Yeah, just so you know, for everyone sitting at home, in case you can't see this right now, is that when you bust the bus stop, as they say, you do have to come to a complete stop before you rejoin. The temptation is just to floor it and rejoin, but there's a man on the fence that will throw a flag and tell you to stop, and then you get going. Easier said in the daytime than the dark. And there's the Krone car off, look.
That's the GTLM Ferrari, the number 57 from Krone Racing with a problem. He's off. We were also looking at Alex Tagliani in the 08 LMP Challenge car, the prototype challenge entry from Rocket Sports Racing. He was leading in class. Scott Dixon leads overall. Starting through here at Daytona, teams, drivers working through their rotations. We've got plenty more to go. Mark Goossens in the 91 Viper leading in the GTLM class from the Rolex 24 at Daytona. 4 different classes of cars running here at Daytona this year. You'll see the entire 24 hours on the Fox family of networks. And the 91 car qualified on the pole. The Viper's very strong at the end of last season in the American Le Mans Series. It'll be interesting to see if we can end up with a Viper back on top here at Daytona.
Well, obviously, I touched on in the pre-show about, they showed a lot of speed at the end of last year, but like at Le Mans last year, we didn't have the speed at Le Mans compared to the Porsches and so forth. But one thing that was key was also the team was still gelling. I mean, just non-stop traffic. But the one thing that, in terms of pit stops and the team gelling, working together, just a lot of improvement on that side of things. Petit Le Mans, it was like a different team after being together for the full season running, race in, race out. And so that's going to be the key. The Corvette guys are just renowned for being precise and flawless, really, really fast pit stops. But this is a chance for the SRT boys to show that they've gained in that area as well. A car everyone knows is fast, but that's what it's going to take to win this race.
They've gained in that area. They've lost in the weight department. They've gotten 30 kilos off since the test, so that's going to help them. But he talks about the team aspect of it, and I think it's something that people miss, Justin. I mean, it does have to gel. You as a driver and your engineer, your crew members that do those pit stops, they all have to feel as one.
Well,
So I was going to say, it's like trust-based, isn't it? It's almost like trust-based, Tommy. As much as you trust the drivers around you out there, you have to be a team. And talk about a team, Ganassi is probably the best example in this pit lane right now.
But, I feel like the changes to the prototypes, especially the Daytona prototypes this year, have benefited the IndyCar drivers who come and run. The cars have a little more downforce. It feels a little more familiar to those guys. Has a little more horsepower, so that feels a little more familiar instead of less downforce and the car sliding around and really having to float it through corners. So perhaps a little bit more familiar feel. Does that make sense, Tommy?
Yeah, for sure. It didn't slow them down before. Both we saw with Montoya. Oh, big slide coming off there. We saw it with Montoya last year running with this team and Dixon. I mean, Dixon is so mild-mannered, you forget what an absolute animal he is.
Problems for the 57. Again, the Krone entry back underway, but we understand that it'd be an issue for the 5 from Action Express. That car
been running quite well. Joao Barbosa being shown in second on timing and scoring, but you see him there at the top of the banking. So already some gremlins beginning to raise their heads, Chris.
Well, Brian, this is something we've just been paying attention to since the drop of the green, because Joao Barbosa did have an overheating issue in the first hour of this race. Now, since they brought the car in under that first caution, the temperatures have gone down in that car. But Calvin and Dorsey were watching the car numerous times around the racetrack, noticing some trailing smoke. And I spoke to the team manager, Elton Sawyer, about that, and he said they aren't seeing anything on the telemetry coming off the car. He's just thinking that some of the fluid levels, the oil level in that car is so high when they start the race that maybe it's just pushing a little bit of oil out.
It's interesting because the temperatures, they must have had some tape or a blocker on the front of it, because the temperatures outside are in the mid-50s right now, so you wouldn't think you would have any kind of an overheating issue unless you planned to try to make sure you had that engine at temperature. It does need to run at a certain temperature in order to produce its power and run optimally, so perhaps they just had a little bit too much of a blocker on it in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, you can pick up debris. There's so much sand, in the especially in the bus stop, people running through the dirt there. It's only going to get worse, and that's a big issue between the amount of screen on the front and then the radiator behind, keeping those in good working case. Barbosa just ran the lap before this, ran the quickest lap of the race for that car, so no ill effects from that the heating issue or cooling issue.
I think that they're taking an interesting approach. They've got 4 drivers listed. Burt Frizzell is listed in that car. I don't expect to see him in it. They've listed him just as kind of an extra. There are 5 drivers in the 9 car, so they're kind of going with a 3-driver lineup, and I find that interesting. A lot of times, maybe it's beneficial not to have that 4th guy, as you see the 91 coming into pit lane to serve, to do their pit stop. They've already been in here on their way back out, I should say.
And look, you can tell there's a lot of pressure on the actual driver change this year because of the change in the pitting regulations. You used to have, you know, a little bit of a cushion, but now the driver change theoretically is probably what's going to limit a lot of these stops. So he had the belts fastened but not tightened, make sure they're settled up on. That's Dominic Farnbacher in the 91 car. And so, and you saw the tribute to Alan Simonson, who was Dominic's teammate for 3 years. Alan, of course, killed in that accident at the very opening of Le Mans. Hit Dominic really hard.
Let's talk about what it means for a young professional driver heading out for your first stint at the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona with the whole weight of the team on your shoulders, because every time you go out as a driver, there's an awful lot of responsibility, especially on these out laps. Of course, the temperature is working in your favor right now as we watch the 91 head up onto the banking.
And when the 91 came to pit road, that handed the lead momentarily to Jimmy Bruni in the 62.
And Jimmy Bruni coming in for his 3rd pit stop. This team seems to be going about a lap longer than all the other GTLM cars, so that could pay dividends later in this race. The team putting medium compound Michelin tires on this Ferrari. Just checked in with them. They said they have to do that because there's a shortage of the Michelin soft tires, so they're having to run mediums. They don't really want to do that. They're having to run mediums. It takes a little bit longer for that tire to come in on these out laps.
You don't want to be running those in the nighttime when it's that cool, that's for sure, because then it'll certainly take a long time. Maybe
two Michelin weeks before the race. And so it was very cold at the Roar, and so that's a real challenge. You think, you would say, well, why is that? Well, Michelin's supplying all these teams, and you multiply it for Continental, and they're bringing trucks and trucks. They can't bring enough of every single compound and rain tires for you to have the infinite choice.
That's not why it's a challenge. It's a challenge because a weather forecaster can't tell you what it's doing tomorrow, much less 2 weeks from now.
And let's face it, let's think about that as well from Michelin's point of view. It was very exciting at Le Mans this year. At the the end of the race, Brian, we were talking, remember I did a feature about their 1 millionth race mile was run. Here they have 10,000 miles. As John Love said to me, he said that's really only like a good week of testing for Michelin. They have an on-site technology lab right now, Brian, that is analyzing every tire that comes off the car. They're not waiting to get it back to Clermont. They are doing it right now, and this is a data collection fiesta for them. This is where they're getting all their stuff for the future.
You talk about the pressure on a young driver. You saw him tightening the belts on the way out. There's so much to do in the car now. You see the radio line that runs to his helmet. There's also the cooler that goes to his helmet, that silver hose that goes to the top of his helmet. That was not hooked up when he first went out. These drivers, when they get in, there is so much work to do. To some extent, you wish it was like the olden days. You just got in, you plugged in a radio, and that was it.
Yeah, and it's what you rehearse, but part of you've got a whole sequence of stuff. And on the radio, when they're talking you in, at least for the Viper team, they remind you of all the things on your in-lap. Unhook air hose, unhook the thing. You can't undo your belts until you've come into your pits. But reminding you to do all those sequence, and the vital stuff is you have to have your belts done before you leave because you can't do them yourself. And then, but in terms of making sure they're settled on top of your Hans device, get the air hose in, get your drink tube, all those different things you can do. And they're at that one end of the pit, so they have a good bit of time under that pit speed limit time to get all that stuff together. And in the changeover, we see the Porsche has cycled back to the front. Patrick Pilet, Dominic in second in the 91 car, but that Ferrari's driver change, I think, was a little bit off because they're about probably, once their tires are warmed up, probably going to be about 10, 15 seconds behind.
Was it the driver change or was it the tires like we talked about? We saw the car sliding a lot when he came back out. Jimmy Bruni really trying to get the handle on that Ferrari. It was really moving around a lot, especially through the International Horseshoe.
Well, it was even before, we'll see what the gap settles out at, but at that time, Dominic was already entering turn 6 when he was in before the cold tires had really shown up.
Yeah, that outlap here, that pit lane exit is critical even in this slightly warmer temperature compared to tonight. So you can see there Mauricio Mediani out on the banking in the Grand Touring Daytona GTD, as we call it. Oh, there's a little engine problem on the inside there.
Smoke out of the Mazda, the prototype down on the inside. I couldn't tell whether it was the 07 or the 70, but that is the Sky Active diesel from Mazda, and a puff of smoke there. It's the 07. No, yeah, there it's. I was wondering for a second if it might have been a little puff. We see a lot of smoke from time to time with a rich fuel load on that diesel power plant, but I don't think that was it.
I think it was the 70 miles an hour that was that was probably the problem, Brian.
There was that as well. So right now, Mazda and their Sky Active diesel, perhaps they are now beginning to experience some of the gremlins that run around here at Daytona. There's a look at your leaders in the 4 different classes. We'll be right back. Rolex 24 at Daytona. If you want to win this event, you have to avoid the problems that can befall you. And right now, several of the drivers experiencing, well, some of the hardship that this racetrack can dish out at the bus stop. Problems for the 33 Viper in the GT Daytona category. It's Scott Dixon that leads overall. We'll bring you those and plenty more stories when we come back.